extraordinary year in many ways. That could be obviously the recent US elections or the end of the transition period, fast approaching at the end of next month. It could be a personal hurdle you've overcome, a business decision that has paid off, or a setback, dare I say, that has you having to sort of shaping up new plans for 2021. Or it could be the death of George Floyd and the extraordinary protests that followed, that outpouring of just emotion and pain, or the sort of enduring impact, of course, of this horrific pandemic of coronavirus. For a lot of people, I think this has been a especially challenging year, but I think for many of us gathered here tonight, the challenges and the pains have been even more acute. After all, we know that COVID has had a disproportionate, way disproportionate impact on Black and South Asian communities, for example. Just as we know that gradual decline in protests is not the sign of an outrage resolved or a job done. So while the whole country and indeed the whole world is fighting to get back on track, there are many people in the United Kingdom and around the world who have already been fighting for a very long time just to be heard. That is something that I am truly committed to changing. And the conversations I have had with businesses and business groups representing ethnic minority groups in this country have been a real help. In fact, I was at a meeting with Amos back in July discussing the government's COVID support measures, and Bpic have been invited to a business roundtable, which I'm hosting, I think, in about a week. In these discussions, I think we have all acknowledged that the injustices of the past cannot be allowed to carry on into the future. And if there is a silver lining to the COVID crisis, it surely is this. Because now that we have been forced into first pausing and then restarting our economy, we have a choice to make, to continue as we were, or to build a better and fairer society and country. One where businesses, business owners, and workers from every background have an equal chance to succeed, because actually talent is spread pretty equally around the country. What it isn't spread equally is opportunity. So where our skills and experiences are recognized and celebrated, that's the sort of country I want us to emerge from this coronavirus pandemic, where all colleagues have the opportunity to contribute whatever their ethnicity is, and where we can all bring our full selves into everything we do with real passion and gusto. That is the world I want to see us building. I'm pleased that there are many organizations in construction who feel the same way. The Association for Consultancy and Engineering have produced their Future of the Workplace report, which I was pleased to speak at the launch of recently. In it, they have committed to setting stringent, tight targets on diversity and inclusion for new member companies, and to providing information on diversity and inclusion in particular to their SME members. Waits Group has recently launched an ethnicity-linked reverse mentoring program. The program will provide opportunities for individuals from underrepresented groups throughout Waits to mentor leaders, including their chief executive, Dave Allen. creating a really powerful, I think, alliance where knowledge and understanding of lived experience is used to shift awareness and action at leadership and board level. Yesterday, Wilmot Dixon were named in the top 50 of the Financial Times Diversity Leaders List, an 850 company strong Europe-wide survey to identify the companies doing the best work on diversity. They are supporting people from disadvantaged backgrounds through their community teams, partnering with social enterprise, Girl Dreamer, which works with young women in BAME communities in deprived areas. And UKRI, through the Transforming Construction Challenge Fund, is seeking to open up the sector for more diverse set of roles and backgrounds into digital manufacturing and energy roles as well. I think this variety of approaches from such a wide range of organizations really does show how serious industry is about making real change. And we in government are pushing this agenda too. In July, the Prime Minister set up the Commission on Race and Ethnic Disparities, which is being sponsored by the Equalities Minister, Kemi Badenoch. The Commission brings together a fantastically diverse group of people from a range of fields, including broadcasting, community organizations, education, science, and of course, economics. They've been asked to look at how race intersects with issues of employment, health, education, and of course, criminal justice. And through the Commission, the Prime Minister has also asked the British Business Bank to look into improving access to capital for entrepreneurs from minority ethnic backgrounds. The Commission's findings are due to be published by the end of the year and will be a cornerstone of our national conversation on race, helping us to target policy towards that better future that I spoke about earlier as we rebuild post-coronavirus. Within this sector, we have funded a series of construction hubs, work experience hub construction sites, where we have provided industry experience to something like 13,500 people and are planning for another 16,000 next year. And through these hubs, we have seen a far wider diversity of applicants than is currently the norm in the industry, or that we have achieved through other initiatives, as well as this societal rebuilding, if I can describe it like that. There is literal building to be done as well. The Prime Minister and the Chancellor have committed billions of pounds to national infrastructure programs, including £1 billion to fund a 10-year school rebuilding program, the £2 billion to improve the energy efficiency of people's homes throughout the country, which means that we expect to see work done on around 650,000 homes, supporting, we think, about 100,000 jobs in green construction. We're launching projects on carbon capture, usage and storage, expanding our already impressive offshore wind farms. The United Kingdom today accounts for 36% of the whole of the planet's offshore wind energy production. And we want to go much further. We want to quadruple that. The Prime Minister set us this challenge to go to 40 gigawatts of offshore wind, every home to be powered by offshore wind by 2030. And of course, building new rail, homes and hospitals across the UK, all of which means there will be lots of work for your industry. So we rebuild these aspects of our country, the physical ones and the societal ones too. Organizations like Bpic will have I think, a formative part to play, while obviously we in government remain focused on responding to COVID-19. It is not the only illness affecting our population. The disease of inequality has been with us for far, far longer, and it will take an equally concerted effort to overcome it. But seeing our collective response to COVID, the resilience and determination that this country is known for around the world, I am confident that if we all commit to it, we can tackle inequality too and be a beacon for the world. And of course, immunize ourselves against it once and for all. I'm proud of the work I have done with Bpic and with so many others to make sure that building back better means something. And I will continue to speak with leaders from underrepresented communities and champion those voices in government. So thank you all for your input, your determination, and your ongoing contribution to a better future for us all. And I thank you for listening tonight. I am the Business and Industry Minister, but I'm also very proudly the Construction Minister. And I'm looking forward to what I'm sure will be an interesting conversation with my fellow panelists.
Thank you very much, Nadeem. Really do appreciate it. Some very sound words that you were saying there. And I like that societal building. And you're right. I think we are on a journey to change our society. And I can see some of that. It may seem rather trivial, but I am, I suppose, like many of us, rather impressed with a lot of the adverts that we are now seeing. That, in a sense, just shows you there's a shift. Never seen so many black and brown people on our TV screens in that way. Brilliant, brilliant. Let me turn to some of you who are sharing your congratulations to Bpic this evening before we go to our next speaker. And also I need to welcome all of you watching live on YouTube. Welcome everybody. Hope you're enjoying the evening. Really appreciate you being with us today. And so the names that I need to mention in the chat, we've got royalty, dear friends, as such. Queen Loretto, I hope I've got that right. You want to pass on your congratulations. You said that you've done well. Michelle Seal, hello Michelle, you said fantastic, congratulations, so excited to see the progress, really impressed with the work that you're doing. And we've also got here this evening, Bola Abisogon. Hi, Bola, and in fact, I should probably add Bola Abisogon OBE. And you want to acknowledge congratulations to Bpic, and you're from Diversity Surveyors. And you're saying there to Amos on the team, you should all be proud of your achievement. Continue to aim for the skies. And I'll say one more that I have here for you. Carlo Coloni, hi, welcome to the Eve Day Bpic. After the event that Amos and I organised, I can honestly say that a door was opened at CBRE, and I'm pleased I've heard of CBRE. Thank you, and I look forward to more collaboration and work with you in the near future. And that's just an array of you. So thank you so many of you. I will do my utmost throughout the evening to share your congratulations to all of those at Bpic. But to our next speaker that we have here with us for the evening, and it's a joy again, as I said, this international feel to friends of Bpic. We have our next guest speaker speaking to us from Geneva in Switzerland, Dr. Nelson Ogashaiki. He's an OBE as well, CEO of International Federation of Consulting Engineers. Dr. Nelson is an accomplished, passionate civil engineer. He's also a grandfather. He shared with us earlier on to two grandchildren. A charismatic business leader, a strategic negotiator, and specialist when it comes to the infrastructure for investment finance. He, over the last 20 years, has combined the roles that he has of executive and non-executive board positions. He's operated at the highest level of professionalism and integrity, and has delivered many business initiatives which have significantly increased turnover and profits in each of the posts that he's had, and also the companies that he has worked for. So a wonderful array of experience and understanding of the world of construction and engineering and risk management, finance, all of that combined into one. So friends, again, let's give a virtual hand clap as such to Dr. Nelson Ogashaki.
Nikki, thank you very much for your warm introduction. And can I, follow the others and congratulations to Bpic in the sense that about a year ago, Amos approached me and informed me about his vision. And I was extremely excited about it. And I did say to him, don't let anything stop you. You should pursue your dream and make sure you make that a reality. And any support that you may need in my capacity, even though I'm not currently in full-time in UK, that is welcome to do so. So massive congratulations for all that has been achieved so far. And I think the sky is the limit. I will strongly encourage you, don't let anything distract you from going with your vision. I think it's a viable one. Second point, I would like to say a good follow-up to the Secretary or the Minister, Nadeem, who is from an area that I used to work very well with, Stratford-upon-Avon. In my early days, I used to work for Warwickshire County Council, and I do know the area very well, Nadeem. Whilst I don't carry any political, calm in what I do, I know your territory very well. But also, I've been asked to speak about FIDIC, which is the big logo you can see behind me. And it does stand for International Federation of Consulting Engineers. But actually, I think it's important that I give you an overview as to where I'm coming from. Because if you understand my background, you understand the journey so far. And hopefully that can inspire some of the people who are listening. I'm really pleased that we have 147 people on the chat who are very good. I'm also asked to touch base on why BPIC is very important and what role can we do to support. More important, I think the importance and the role of the diversity and inclusion in construction. And I suspect, the question is not so much of UK on a global scene, because when I talk about FIDIC, you probably have a better understanding of my footprint and my challenges that I have to face. It's interesting that the minister referenced ACE, which is Association for Consultants in Engineering. I ran that organization for 14 years. I rebranded it and I made it what it was. And I'm really pleased that they are connecting with the minister, because the legacy I left there was about making sure the voice of engineering and construction is heard, and is heard at the decision maker level, and to have them at the table so that they are not part of the menu. So I'm really pleased, Minister, that great move is being built on that, and congratulations on that bit. But I'm also asked to speak about, what drives me and why our industry and why should I, get to the position that I'm in. And I'd like to finish up with some closing remark as to what I think will help and inspire the young one. As Nikki said, I am a granddad of two. Youngest one is 7 months old and the oldest one is 3 years old. And I've just gone past the level 6 in my life. And I'm excited about that because I feel that we've left some legacy behind. FIDIC, as it stands, FIDIC was set up in 1913. So it's 107 years old. And actually, it's about the same year that ACE was set up. And in fact, we did the centenary party together at Dorchester Hotel in London. And I was delighted to host over 2,000 delegates all over the world in London, to make sure that the role of engineer is well known. FIDIC represents over 100 countries around the world, and we represent the Association of Associations. So the ACE UK that the minister mentioned is a member of FIDIC. And I have the same number of associations around the world, in America, in South Africa, in Nigeria, in Ghana, in Jamaica, in St. Kitts, Trinidad and Tobago, every corner part of the world, we have members who are members of FIDIC. And what FIDIC does is very simple. We promote best in class, in standard, in the way construction and engineering projects should be delivered. We true believe in issue of quality, issue of transparency, and more important, some of the things that the minister mentioned about sustainability, because we have the green agenda coming up, which is something that we all can contribute in our industry. With that in mind, I think we represent countries in terms of population about 6.5 billion. We believe the market share that we cover in terms of representation is about 33 trillion of construction work. And with that in mind, it means that I have a lot of responsibility. Having looked after UK for 14 years, and the farthest I traveled in those days was between Scotland and John O'Groats. But now I have to travel 107 countries around the world. It's interesting that the minister referenced to the pandemic, which is absolutely important. Earlier this year, I was in Beijing between 10th and 17th of January. On the 13th or 23rd, sorry, of January, we had a lockdown in Wuhan. And my role requires me to represent all those countries. It means I travel a lot. My carbon footprint last year was pretty bad, actually. I'm actually, ashamed to mention it. But you cannot represent 102 countries without actually touching base with your members. It's very important. But how does FIDIC work? We take the view of all our members around the world, just like ACE and the one in South Africa and the one in Jamaica and everywhere. We take it to the decision maker. We work extensively with the Multilateral Development Bank, who are funder of major projects. And if you think about the UK as the apostle and the treasurer for the UK infrastructure industry, then there is a bigger picture, which is the like of the World Bank, Inter-American Development Bank, Caribbean Development Bank, African Development Bank. Inter-American Development Bank are very much in that area. And you also have African Development Bank and Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. All these banks are investing money in infrastructure. The biggest issue and the concern they have is to make sure we have the right skill base, that our skill is diverse, they represent society that they live on, and more important is to ensure that investment is appropriately discharged in an area where the quality of the infrastructure is sustainable and the society contribute to that development, and that transparency is pretty key. We know in UK, as I've lived 40 years in UK, that one of the biggest strengths of UK PLC is what we do is transparent. We have exportable capability, and the expertise of UK PLC is well renowned. So on the basis of what I've done in UK for 14 years is the reason why I've got this job. And I'm really proud that, FIDIC is bold enough for the first time, they appointed a Black person to be the CEO of such an organization, but actually it's not new. This sort of issue about, glass ceiling, we've been breaking it from a long time. In my family, I'm the first one that went into university. My father happened to be a civil engineer, but also in the role that I had in AC, I was the first Black person to be in that particular position. And I think we did a good job. And over that period, I'm really pleased that I have quite a lot of people that I mentor. Some of them, you've mentioned them. Ola, Nike, Oli, all of them, I know them very well. They are my mentees, if I can mention that. But coming back into FIDIC, the three golden principles in FIDIC is about quality of the design of what we do in construction industry. It's about sustainability of the society and the sustainability of the solution we provide. And it's about integrity of what we deliver, because the rumor has it that there is a lot of corruption around the world, and construction industry is always identified as an area of issue. And why? Because construction is such a fragmented industry, but actually, as much as we don't want to encourage any issue about corruption, the oil and gas sector, another sector, and the defense sector are pretty worse. But actually, because of fragmentation in our industry, that means that every eye of investors is looking at us. In your introduction, you talk about my role. I also sit on TfL, Transport for London. I sit on Crossrail, and I'm the chair of the investment decision. So from that point of view, coming on to FIDIC, part of what we do in FIDIC is to make sure that we promote good practice and we encourage investors and government to work together to the benefit of the society. But having said that, I was very intrigued to understand in terms of our governance. We have a board that is made up of 9 people around the world, and we have a number of committees where we look at issue and standard, very much like BSI in UK, where we look at it at a global level. And a lot of what we do becomes an ISO standard, which means people actually use that globally, become real standard. And actually, if I pause for a minute and you go back to the formation of the AC in UK and the FIDIC, you find that a lot of the standard that FIDIC is promoting are UK export. I am so proud that UK, is able to deliver those high-level standards that the rest of the world is actually using and modifying to make sure that we have a better society that we live in. Having said that, I think the other question that was put across to me is what's the role of the construction, Black people in the construction industry? One of the things that FIDIC is very passionate about is about diversity and inclusion. Again, as we change the AC structure, we've managed to change the structure of FIDIC in the last 12 months since I actually took control of the organization. We are now ensured that we have representatives across all the region, So we have 6 regions, which is North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Middle East, and Asia Pacific. In every part of that, we have representatives on our board. In fact, you could ask the question, why are we based in Geneva? Geneva is perceived to be a city of peace, is the home of United Nations. And as we know, the United Nations talks about sustainability development goals. And this is becoming a big issue that is actually is something that we'll be looking at in the COP26, which I believe the Prime Minister of UK is going to chair. And I do believe UK can take a lead role in that particular area. So having said that, the question that I see that is topical for us is one about how do we acquire the right skill? How do we retain the skill? How do we motivate those people to stay? Now, I can tell you, when I entered the UK construction industry in the late 70s, I was most of the time the black person, the only black person on every construction site. And it saddened me. And I asked myself a question, I can be the best engineer. I mean, actually, the joke of the time in the evening, you have to keep laughing, otherwise they don't see you on site. There is no role, opportunity, and visibility for black people. And I look back now in my journey with the little contribution that we've made, that the country is changing, but it's not changing fast enough. And this is where the government have a role to play. And I will encourage the minister to make sure that at least those capital projects, we could condition a percentage of what it is that is going to be spent to be with black and ethnic minority, because that is the only way we can change the mind and the heart of the industry. I speak passionately as much as I talk about UK, but I also talk about the rest of the world. I preach the same principle wherever I go. Construction industry have to reflect the society that we live in, not only in UK, but all over the world. Now, if you go to Africa, it is black people. If you go to India, it is Indian people. If you go to Middle East, it's Arab people that you find. And why should it be in a multi-diverse society such as UK, where construction does not attract people, because all you see is effectively working with a donkey jacket and Wellington boot and your hard hat, but the intellectual side of it, we are not seeing. I'm delighted that we've seen a number of initiatives that's come up over the years, such as what the AFP is doing, what Bola is doing in diversity for the surveyor, and this initiative that BPIC is doing. I'm really pleased that you guys are taking the mantle and you are running with it. One of the key issues that I'm keen about is to make sure that we do have role model in our industry. Unless we encourage role model, we are not going to see any structural change to the society. Now, I am the first black to be appointed to the TFL board, and I've been there for 5 years, and I don't have any political issue. In fact, I wear my color of my time privately, but my job is to make sure in the construction industry, we have more black and ethnic minority in a key position, so that we can inspire the young ones who are coming in to make sure that there's a role for them. What I see, the like of, Bola, being recognized by the Queen, I'm delighted about that. When I see, Ollie's sister being recognized, Nike, by the Queen, that is fantastic. But we need to do more of that. We really need to do more of that. And why do I say we need to do more of that? We need to encourage that. I do like what the minister said earlier on. We want to see more black ethnic minority in key positions to influence people. And if there is one takeaway that I want to leave with the team, is that we need to ask ourselves, how are we benchmarked with other sectors? If you look at the racing industry, Lewis Hamilton has just done it. He's the best. Nobody can take that credibility away from him. He's achieved what has never been achieved before, but it's hard to get through there. You go into the music industry, you see someone like Stormzy, who is not perceived, that come from the right background, but he's at the top of his game. You look into the theater, Idris, he's doing a wonderful job, and they're actually well seen. You look into the politics, you've got Sadim, you got Nadim, you got all of them. You even got our chancellor, who is actually from ethnic minority. For God's sake, I think we have an opportunity to use the BLM as a platform. We should not hold back from it. We should leverage on it, and we should encourage the industry and to make sure that in construction industry, from the client organization, to make sure they make it absolutely right, from the consultant and the designer, to make sure they have a percentage in that particular food chain, from the contractor, from the supply chain. I think it's absolutely important. We need to make sure at every single point in the construction industry, we have a percentage of ethnic minority. I am not an advocate of percentage, but I think we need to set a goal. And I do believe that when you look at the challenges that is facing the UK government, which is like similar all other government, and I do like the commitment to net zero in the 2050. I think it's a wonderful aspiration. I think if you're looking for means of showcasing, how are we going to look at issue of carbon capture and storage system? How are we going to look at nuclear that we need to build? We need to look at decarbonize the housing. A lot of housing work that needs to be done. Would it be right for the government to actually say, in every part of this transaction we're going to engage in, we want to have an element of diversity and inclusion to be built in? I'm really pleased. I was talking to my good friend who is running High Speed 2, Alan Cook, and he said to me, Nelson, you know my role within the Royal Academy of Engineers. He said, we are pushing the envelope in High Speed 2, and I'm really delighted about that. You look through TFL, the same approach. You look through High Speed, through Crossrail, the same approach. And I'm challenging the minister, please, this is the time for you to take the mantle and to run with it and to encourage the young one to come through. I would not say my time is gone, but actually I've done my bit in UK. I'm now doing at global level. I'm so proud when I go around the world and people say, where do you come from? And I say, actually originally from Nigeria, but I've spent my formative years in UK. And I'm proud to talk about that. And you know what? People listen to me because they believe the British build a very good engineer. So I want to leave with the note that let's find and encourage the future tomorrow's people within the construction industry and make sure we have the right people at the right place who can encourage others to come through. My father happens to be a civil engineer. He died very young when he was working in Hammersmith on the construction side. And I'm delighted that I'm the only one in my industry, but I've actually got a lot of nieces and nephews who are in QS, who are in construction industry at different level. Over my time, one of my mantra is to mentor a lot of young people. Bola is one of them. You see, Nika is one of them. His brother is one of them. And they're all in that place. I'm glad to see them. When I see them being recognized and they're taking key role, I know I made my contribution. Their baton is now being passed on to them. And I want to encourage you, Amos, don't give up on your vision. The whole team, I congratulate you for what you've done, and I continue to encourage you. I may be in Geneva, my heart is in UK. And Nikki, you talked about Arsenal. I have a flat in Islington. That's my territory. But also, if you are talking about Midland, my other half support Aston Villa. So I do have to play the politics in my household to make sure that I'm relevant onto both sides of the family. So all I can say to you without taking too much of your time is I feel blessed being invited to come and speak to you. I apologize for not supporting you enough because I'm not in UK. When I used to be in UK, both Nika and others got my time, and I want to challenge you to please to make sure you continue to do what you are doing. And to the minister, I beg you, you are the seat and you are around the table and you are about people who can make decisions. And I encourage you, please don't let the voice of the Black and ethnic minority down. Let's get it in position. Let's inspire some real potential and sustainable change in our industry. There is huge investment coming in infrastructure, whether it's to do with nuclear, whether it's to do with decarbonization of our industry. A lot of investment that is going to come through. When I speak publicly to the bank at the World Bank or African Development Bank or Asian Development Bank, they listen to me with passion. One of the reasons why I took the job that I took, I said, I can build tons of bridges. I would never be Brunel because Brunel's time is long and gone. But if I'm an advocate to promote what engineering and construction does, if I'm an advocate to promote what role that diversity and ethnic minority can do, if I'm an advocate to encourage young people to come into the industry, then people will recognize me for that. Not building bridges, not building roads, because I have done that and I've gone past that. So I want to say thank you very much for inviting me. I'm sorry I cannot stay too late to join you in the conversation. Minister, I think, I want to encourage you and the rest of the team to make sure that at least this is the beginning of the new chapter. We can build on it, regardless of political color, whatever it is. The role of the Black ethnic minority is very important, and I want us to take the challenge and run with it. Let's find more of the Hamilton in our particular sector. Let's find more of Nike. Let's find more of Bola. Let's find more of Oli. Let's get them in the position of authority. I sit on a TFL 10 billion business and I make decision and the mayor listen to me. And people know that the role of Black people in London is represented. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Oh my goodness me. Thank you, Dr. Nelson Ogashakin. Can you be my granddad and dad and everybody and mentor? A wonderful words of encouragement and a joy really to hear about your journey. And I think for many of us listening, especially the younger generation, I think it's a joy to realize the work that has gone in to get the positions that you have and to see the sites and to have the influence that you have had. So again, many thanks to you, Dr. Nelson, really do appreciate it. And I make sure I give the full title again, Dr. Nelson Ogashakin, OBE.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Yes.
I wish you all the very best. If you do ever need any contact, please reach out. That Hands of Hope is there anytime. If I'm not with you physically, I'm with you spiritually. And if you do need my contact, wherever you are, please reach out. My email, my detail is out there and you can get it to me anytime. I may not be in UK. I'm not on tax haven. I'm always in UK every other weekend. With the COVID-19, I can fly in anytime. I can fly out. But I wish you all the very best. And I just want you to give you all the energy because the tomorrow's people need to look up to you and you need to set the pattern and pass the pattern on. I have mine and I keep on doing it. I just leave that thought with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Really do appreciate it. Oh, wonderful words. Enthusiasm and passion. Really enjoyed that. Let me return to just one or two comments before we go to our panel, which our panel discussions coming up shortly with Mary. We're going to hear from Amos again because he's got some wonderful for us that we're going to be hearing about. But let me share again some of those of you who've put your congratulations here in the chat. Ian Benjamin, thank you. Ian, you say Amos on team, absolutely amazing idea and it deserves all the growth and success. Keep it going. Matt Burton, you've also said congratulations to Bpic for a wonderful new year. Now I'm praying I get do this right because it's from Taze Design Incorporated in Canada. So Tesu Itavaya. I hope I got your name correct there. Happy anniversary to Bpic and job well done to Amos and the team. Congratulations from Taze Design. Again, I'm encouraging you, if you want to put a couple of questions into the Q&A. If you're on the webinar, you can put those ready for the panelists. That's coming up for you shortly. There is one person that I think I got a question here that he's hoping to hear. I think his name's Rudy Mars. You were saying that you've been trying to find some work within construction. So you'd like to hear something about opportunities for openings regarding work and opportunities in that way. So that I'm sure will come up in the conversation. So then let's turn back to you, Amos, because you look as though you've got some exciting news to share.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks a lot, Nikki. And I've got to say, you know, what an exciting speech that we just had from Dr. Nelson. When we first met and spoke on the phone, initially, obviously, I was a bit nervous and I didn't know what he was going to say to me. But, you know, it turned out really well. I meant what I said and still do up to this day in terms of where we want to take this and the passion that I have. You know, it's always good to get a chance, you know, for somebody to actually listen to what you're saying, because if it's me, when I'm 50 or whatever age, whether I'll listen to younger people, I hope I will, but it's not always guaranteed that somebody will take their time out of their day to actually listen to you. So I always say thank you, you know, from Dr. Nelson, from Minister Nadim Zahari, and everybody that's on the call for actually taking the time to actually have their day to actually listen to you and say, okay, what plans do you have? Et cetera, because, you know, as young people, we all have ambition and we think we're going to take over the world. I certainly think I am. But, you know, not everybody kind of, you know, believes that, and just giving it that chance is really, really vital. And that's something that we champion for everybody across the industry, to say, give people a chance to show what they can do. And that's the main thing. So what I wanted to say briefly before we go on to the panel discussion is just our plans for next year, where we're going with Bpic Network. So for us, you know, we've seen so much potential From the short time we've been in the industry, we've seen what all the gaps are and how things can be done a bit better, but also learning from people that have been there before us. So, we want to build this as a digital platform. So you can actually get on the platform as an organization, as a member, find what you want to find, be it events, be it career opportunities, be it the inclusion aspects. You can get on it straight away. That's the angle that we're going at. And so far we got, promising, we've had promising pathways that can get us to there. We're going to be raising a lot of funding over the next year. Thing is with funding, you actually have to sit down and actually do it. And it's the time to actually do that, seclude yourself and make the applications, get yourself in the right places. So that's something that we're going to be working on. We want to bring our industry together, really, because at some point we have to have a conversation where we say things have moved on, because sometimes it feels like this conversation will go on forever, but it's not going to go on forever. At one point, things are going to be better. The talent acquisition, that's something effect. So we're doing research into essentially a heat map across the country of where is the Black talent, what do they do, which areas are they in. So when we're engaging with employers, we're actually telling them what the demographic is. So we're working with a couple of universities to actually get that information. Mentoring is one thing that we're working on quite effectively. So we've launched 2 mentoring schemes at the moment, which are ongoing. And thing is with mentoring, you never realize, what you need until you see it. For myself, when I was growing up, I never thought I needed mentoring. And then I must have seen someone on TV. I think I saw someone build a development in Ghana. And I think it must have been Lewis Hamilton, what it achieved. And you never know what you need until you actually see it. And I actually start believing in it to say, seed, beads sort of thing. I thought I had it all. But sometimes when you see people that have achieved what you want, it hits you differently. So it's a resonance. And a strong minority-owned supply chain. And we've had so many good, suppliers on our supply chain. But what we want to do is actually give a true picture. So when people say, oh, you should employ minority-owned organizations on different projects, we want to reveal what it actually looks like, to say across the country, this number, because when companies are registering, sometimes it's difficult to disclose the owner's information, like who actually owns it. And for us, that's what we're doing, giving that data. There's great companies out there. We've had MDC doing the fit out in fit out. We have Yomas Associates doing great work out there, and a few others, that are actually out there doing so much great work. And for us, we want to expose those companies and also say, how can we help better again, so we can build, communities that are being built from people in those communities, and we've gained a lot with Northern Forest. So for next year, these are our main goals. And when you're looking out for us out there, this is what we're targeting, and we'll welcome any support that we can have. I'm not sure if there's any slide. We're going to the next slide. We're going to the next. We're going to the panel discussion. Okay, the next slide is to do with the Bpic Awards. So Nikki, before you jump in, so you put your camera on. Next year, November, we're going to be having Bpic Awards, and we're going to be celebrating, talent within the built environment. And we encourage you all to attend, and we're going to be working with everybody. We've already had 8 companies who've signed up as sponsors to our awards. And for us, that's something that's exciting. And that's something for us that we want to show talent that's come through all the challenges. So it doesn't mean putting everyone on a pedestal. It's literally celebrating the talent that's been through all the challenges and still managed to make it. So that's something that we're going to be having November 2021. Look out for it. Thank you, everyone.
Wow, wow, wow. That sounds amazing, Amos. Well done. I can't believe that you're going to be having the awards this time next year. It's something that we're all going to be very excited about hearing, and all the opportunities and plans for 2021. It's amazing to keep dreaming big and keep inspiring. So that's a joy. And I guess that everybody who's linked to Bpic, and even if you're not, you would encourage others to get involved and find out more. I was going to share with you some more chat, but because we are on time, which is great, we're going to go straight to our panel, which is going to be hosted by a wonderful Mary Godwin.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening. I am Mary Godwin, consultant, author, presenter, host, and I am so glad to be celebrating with Bpic the 1-year anniversary. Congratulations, Amos, and congratulations to the network. And I just hope everyone is inspired. This evening has been so good, so inspirational, with all the keynote speakers just speaking on just amazing things that are currently being done in the industry. And we've got some more insight from some of these thought-provoking leaders, which I'm excited to introduce. So firstly, I'd like to introduce Joanna Muyoti Grant. She is the Associate Director at Turner & Townsend, who has a vast knowledge and experience in corporations, government, and the voluntary organization, built upon a firm academic knowledge and a proven ability to apply this in business operations, and has a keen commitment to lifelong learning and development. Thank you so much for being with us, Joanna, this evening. I'd also like to introduce Rod Watson. He is the CEO of LA VIP Agent and Director of Sports and Entertainment at Keller Williams, Beverly Hills. He assists clients who are largely professional athletes, developers, business managers, wealth managers, and investors. And he helps them to find income-producing properties or real estate with generous ROI and upside potential. He additionally assists homeowners and buyers in the luxury. I also would like to introduce Amy Baines, who is a consultant at Gleedz. Gleedz is a partner of Bpic, and she's the lead of the female force group within Gleedz, creating a forum for women to discuss issues faced in the workplace as well as in the industry, and developing solutions to combat these challenges. She also is taking an active role in paying it forward to the next generation of industry leaders, contributing to work done in schools to inform and educate prospective industry professionals. So welcome all panelists. I'd like to start with Joanna. How can I forget our dear MP? He's also part of the panel. We've heard him speak as a keynote speaker, and he just really informed us about the fantastic opportunities that are being provided for BAME professionals and businesses. And we can really pick at his brain at this point in time, just to get more information about what's being done in the industry in regards to people of color and minority businesses. So I'd like to jump right in asking the first question, and that will be to Joanna. And that's for you really to just give us more understanding of your journey, what you've done, and what has brought you to where you are now.
I think to start, I think it's about, one of my key things is about learning to be authentically myself. I think throughout the early stages of my career, I was kind of trying to navigate what was the best way, do I need to fit in? And I think throughout time and experience, I've learned to be authentically myself and to maintain a standard. And I think that is what's been key to getting me to where I am now. I've always, as you mentioned, I've always worked in the program environment. So that's ranged from working for the Foreign Office in Kenya and Somalia and parts of East Africa, working for Network Rail up and down the country, also working in the aviation industry. So I've done a range in the program environment, but I think working with different people, learning to navigate the environment, if you're not used to that, it can throw you off. In your personal life, you can feel quite confident, and then your professional life, you feel it's a different path for you. But I think once you learn to be authentically yourself and take control of your mind, you'll find that you can navigate as you go through the corporate career.
Awesome, thank you so much for sharing. And I do want to encourage everybody that's on the call, please do feel free to be as interactive as you have been in the chats. I've been seeing them pop in all evening, and also feel free to ask questions in the Q&A section. The panelists are available to answer those questions offline, as well as with some of the questions that I'll be posing to them. I am aware that we have a limited time for questions, so if we're not able to get around to all of your questions, the panelists are here this evening, and they are responding to questions that you are asking them directly. So that's just a bit of a heads up to those of you that are itching to ask specific questions. So I will definitely move on to Nadeem. Thank you so much once again for your keynote speech. And there have been so many questions around what has been done for people of colour and also for minority businesses. And you really did touch on quite a few things that are currently being done. And I definitely have to commend you for all the work that you've been doing. Some of the questions that were posed were that, minority-led businesses are very capable to meet demands or particular opportunities and contracts. However, they tend to not win the large contracts. And this is often because when it comes to applying for bids, the technicalities and the complexities of the guidelines hinder them. We just want to know what is currently being done to increase diversity and inclusion in the supply chains.
That's a great question, Mary, and thank you for having me on today as part of this panel. So a couple of things are happening. One is we are very close to publishing the construction playbook, which I think will help make it much more accessible. There was a question in the Q&A, sort of similar to the gist of what you've just asked me, around very small businesses as well. What we want to try and do, and this is obviously the construction playbook is a really important part for this industry, and we've been working very closely with the Construction Leadership Council to get this absolutely right. And I think people will be pleased with the results of what this will do, i.e. make it much easier and better, and for government to be able to leverage the investment we're making. You heard from the brilliant Nelson earlier about the level of investment in infrastructure, and you're hearing it sort of, and you'll hear sort of the sort of the drumbeat come through the next weeks and months on the energy white paper, on the decarbonisation of transport, on a hydrogen strategy, on infrastructure. National infrastructure strategy. We're looking at investing, and the best way to come out of this COVID pandemic is to invest, in my view. We're looking at investing of something like £640 billion in infrastructure, both physical and digital. So from the schools building program I mentioned, to the hospitals that we're building, to obviously transport, HS2 and other projects as well. What I'm working on with Theodore Agnew, Minister Agnew, is the procurement green paper. Government buys every year about £292 billion of stuff. 292 billion. The numbers are massive, and that's just above the threshold. I'm not counting the stuff below the threshold. And the work we're doing is to see how, as we are now out of the European Union, how can we take advantage of flexing our buying power to make it much easier for SMEs and UK content in that, within the rules of WTO, because rightly so, we always play by the rules, and that's the right thing to do. But we think we have a real opportunity, both in the construction sector with the construction playbook, but also in the greater procurement across government, to leverage in and make it easier for SMEs to be able to supply into government, and of course the greater sector as well, and look at not just who delivers the cheapest price, but sustainable value. Look at the carbon footprint of any product that's coming into the procurement process in government. So big projects. Yes, we're having to deal with COVID, but at the same time, we've got massive ambitions to deliver that sort of clean, green, resilient economy. And you're going to hear more about it from myself, and of course, more importantly, from the Prime Minister and the Chancellor.
Thank you so much. And once again, these are fantastic opportunities that are being provided, which sometimes, people from minority businesses are not able to gain access to, are not able to find out about these particular opportunities. And you did mention before as well about a roundtable discussion that you are facilitating. And once again, how do we increase particular businesses such as SMEs and minority businesses to be involved in such conversations? Because they are usually left out. However, these conversations affect them drastically, if not more so, than big businesses that are able to cope in such pandemics as COVID right now. So how do they get involved in these conversations?
Well, one, we already, so through the Construction Leadership Council, they're very good at not just talking to the big boys, and it is mainly, sadly, a boys' club, and it needs to be, the much more diverse and much more, both ethnically and gender-wise. But also, actually, they're very good at bringing the smaller companies as well, and some are brilliantly led by both female leaders and ethnic minority leaders. But we can always do more, which is why I go out of my way to engage, as I said in my opening remarks, with Black and Asian-led businesses in this sector and other sectors as well, because I think you deliver much better outcomes if there is diversity of thought and diversity of delivery. And I think it's not just good for society; it's good business.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for those contributions. And I want to go on to Rod Watson. Rod, thank you so much for joining us. I believe it's still morning over where you are in Los Angeles. And you have a great story in regards to what it is that you've been able to accomplish. And I'd love for you to share on these things with some of the attendees that may not be aware of your past and your history and what it is that you're doing now. So if you can just tell us more about what it is that you're doing in your journey.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on today. It's definitely a privilege and an honor to be here and participate on this panel. I am Rod Watson. I'm actually from Houston, Texas. I was born there in the South. My journey actually started with a passion in sports. I took the game of basketball on a very early age, around 9 or 10 years old. Fell in love with it after I had the opportunity to learn who Michael Jordan was at the time, back in like 86, 87. But fast forwarding, I was fortunate enough, I did really well in high school, and I had the opportunity to play basketball in college and also professionally overseas. And that started my journey. But when I got done with sports playing, one of the things, obviously having at the time, a college degree, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do outside of sports. My whole life, I thought I'd be playing in the NBA, and the furthest I got was overseas. And that still was a great accomplishment coming from where I came from, because my father went to prison when I was very young. I think I was 9, maybe 10 years old when my dad went to prison. So therefore, my mom was left raising me, and she got remarried. And I actually had 2 other siblings, a brother and a sister. And it was a very challenging relationship in a marriage for her because her husband was abusive. So, coming out of high school and playing in college and having an opportunity to play professionally, once I got done, a lot of my past, there was a lot of struggles and challenges, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do outside of sports. And then all of a sudden I started doing research and learning more about real estate while I was coaching in college, and saw that was an opportunity that I could, create the lifestyle that I wanted for myself and my family. Start, focusing on breaking generational curses that I had endured growing up, and like a lot of my other siblings and family members. But the issue was I didn't see many people that looked like me. And that was one of the challenges that was at first was quite intimidating, because I didn't fully understand the business, and I didn't have anyone that I could go to like a Rod Watson today to sit down and talk about the business and get the insight and information on what it took to be successful. But nonetheless, I didn't let that stop me. So I started reading books and doing my own research and educating myself about the industry and what it took to succeed. And it just so happened when I made the decision to walk away from coaching after I received my master's degree at Point Loma Nazarene University, I said, you know what, I'm going to move back home. I'm going to learn as much as I can about flipping homes and being an investor. And I taught myself, my wife and I, and we bought our first couple of properties, and everything kind of took off from there. And then to kind of fast forward, what led me into getting into the sports and entertainment pieces, after I started looking around at the luxury level and saying, how do I break into that? You know, because I didn't know wealthy people that could afford these types of homes. None of my friends or family members could afford these types of homes. But what I saw was that I had a lot of relationships with professional athletes, coaches, individuals that knew people that were connected to these individuals, meaning professional athletes. And I thought, man, this could be my break-in. And a close friend of mine that I would play basketball with in the summer times played for the Houston Rockets. He gave me my first opportunity by selling his property, which was a luxury home. And as you know, many of you know, when you're working to break into a space where there's very few that look like us, or there's very few women or minorities, it's challenging. It can be intimidating. But my friend gave me an opportunity because he trusted me and he believed me. And that showed me the power of relationships. And I leveraged that. And that began to open more doors, because what I was experiencing prior to my career, in order to break into luxury, you either had to have the experience in past sales, or you had to know someone that trusted you to allow you to list and sell their homes. And so I didn't have past experience, but I did have that relationship with someone that trusted me. So from there, my mission became, how do I create equity in this space? How do I create more opportunities for people that look like, you and I, or the individuals that are on these panels, and women, because there's also very few women of color that are in the luxury real estate space. And I began to develop the brand LA Vip Agent, which focused on a concierge service and a distinct approach to servicing this niche demographic here in Los Angeles. And that became my staple. And then what I then began focus on is creating curriculum. I created a course called Rookie to Pro, meaning like a rookie in a professional sport, to becoming a pro. Because when everyone starts out in the beginning, they're rookies at whatever you're doing, meaning you don't know jack, and you got to figure out how to be successful. You have to put in the work. But I created a fast track course that showed agents how to actually enter the business, of things they should be focused on, how to develop a brand, how to formulate your identity in this space to build equity, and the things you should be doing on a day-to-day basis. And I made this course free because I understood a lot of agents that look like us that come into the industry, they don't have a lot of money to invest off the bat right away, because it does cost quite a bit of money to get started. Not like when you're starting an actual business or a storefront, but nonetheless, most people don't have a few $1,000s out of the gate to buy a course and then pay for their, realtor dues and et cetera. So I created the course as a way to give back, and obviously to connect with other young professionals in this space. And then I stayed focused on my mission with continuing to develop my brand. And part of why I ultimately did this is because I wanted to be an inspiration. I wanted other young people, young Black men and women and people of color, to be able to see someone that looked like them, which would lead to, them taking action and saying, hey, I can see myself doing this. Because I took myself back to the beginning when I first started and said, man, I don't see anybody in this space that looks like me. And it was very intimidating. And I remember that feeling. And I thought, man, how many people out there feel the same way as I do? So, my mission then became to just focus on being an inspiration, creating equity opportunities, connecting with other professionals in this space as I grow my name and my brand in this place, and just being a consummate professional at everything I do, giving it my best, and always making sure that, I'm paying it forward with opportunities when people reach out to me to learn how they can have success in this space as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. And I'm sure that the attendees on the call are literally like they're with a notepad and pen and paper, just literally writing things down and just gleaning from the information and the knowledge that you're sharing. But something that I do want you to touch on are the challenges, because you've been able to sort of bring your whole sort of career into such a short space of time and make it seem like it's been a smooth journey. But I can only imagine that there has been so many challenges. One, just trying to get clients to consistently invest in your business and believe in you, like you said, from a rookie to being, someone that's trusted and that is willing. It is challenging. So please do touch on that and say how you overcame those challenges, especially because of your background, with your family background as well. You mentioned breaking generational curses. So this is a long time coming where maybe people in your family hadn't been, hadn't had those opportunities that you currently have. So how were you able to overcome those challenges?
Well, growing up, I was always told I was very stubborn and hard-headed. And, oftentimes you hear those things, you think negative, but I believe mindset is the key. For me, it was my mindset and leaning in on who I am and understanding my strengths, and just so happened to being stubborn and hard-headed I use that to my advantage of never giving up in pursuing my goals and dreams in this space. So my mindset and my motto is never give up, and I'm going to figure it out no matter how long it takes me to become successful at what I'm pursuing. And you know, what I did is just, rather than focusing on the negatives, because we all have them, and no matter what you're doing, there's going to be negatives, there's going to be roadblocks, there's going to be things that are going to try to, people or things that come up that can be seen as obstacles. And what I focused on is, okay, you know, if I don't know something, educate yourself. If I don't have access to something, figure out who does and build relationships, build bridges, figure out ways around it, over it, through it. There's always an answer. There's always a solution is what I'm saying. So I focused on finding solutions or creating solutions to the problems. And I also remember, you know, growing up, my mother always would tell me, you know, patience is a virtue, you know, nothing happens overnight. And I believe that's also one of my advantages. And I tell people, you may very well be smarter than me. You may very well have, at the moment, maybe more resources and opportunity, but there are two things you'll never do. You'll never outpatient me, right? And you'll never work harder than I will. And so I lean on those things. Those are my strengths, being patient and knowing that the work I put in today is for the next quarter or for the following quarter. I'm planting seeds. I'm a farmer. And I grew up around my grandfather, watching him invest in his farm. You know, he was a hay baler, he had cows, and it was hard work every summer. So I took those attributes from my childhood, all the things that oftentimes that were negatives, and I flipped them and I used them to my advantage in my current life. And the key is really just not giving up and making sure you have a positive mindset, regardless of what's being thrown at you. The journey is what it's about, and enjoying that and embracing that. And that's what I chose to focus on. And I believe that's why I'm successful today.
That's fantastic. And thank you. I really feel a sort of theme of resilience through it all. So there's been challenges, but you always look to a solution, and you always look to, you know, be resilient. And I just love what fueled you, and your passions were the fact that you saw that there was a gap. There wasn't diversity in, you know, industry, and that sort of spurred you on. And that very much leads me on to, you know, ask the next question of the panelist, Amy, because this is something that drove you in regards to your role in Gleedz to form, you know, this female forum of something that wasn't there before. And really, in regards to Gleedz, their diversity and inclusion journey is quite new, actually, something that they're exploring and something that they're doing. So Amy, I'd love for you to talk a bit more about the work that you're doing with the Female Force Group and how it started.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Mary. Good evening, everyone. So I'm Amy Baines. I'm from Gleedz. I work as a consultant providing strategic advisory services, business case development, program, project, contract management for capital projects for the public sector. Firstly, it's an honour to be a panellist at Bpic's first anniversary event, especially with the partnership that Gleedz have with the network now, which a colleague of mine, Louise Ellis, is going to be talking a little bit more about in her keynote speech later in the evening. But yeah, my journey has led me to the D&I work that I'm now very passionate in progressing, which you mentioned, Mary. So with my BAME journey as a female, I've always had an interest in construction, with my parents coming from a property developing background. However, having studied at an all-girls grammar school, we were just encouraged to pursue the traditional academic career paths, and they just didn't speak to me. They didn't interest me, and not once was the construction industry promoted as a sector to establish a career in. And it was my mum that was the one who researched and persuaded me into exploring quantity surveying as a better fit for me, and she came along with me to my uni open days, and we learned more about the QS course and the RICS ABC course, and suddenly it all clicked, and I realized that this is what I need to be doing, and this is what my career will be, and that was, it was such a happy moment and a relief that this is what I'm meant to be doing now. You know, it wasn't any of those academic courses that hadn't sort of run through for me. And I did thoroughly enjoy my uni course, but when I was sitting there in those uni lectures with 60 to 80 boys and there's only 4 or 5 of us girls, you know, that was the eye-opener that this is a male-dominated industry. And I've been at Gleedz for 8 years now, and I have seen a positive change starting to happen in the industry, but there's still so much more to be done. And the partnership that Gleedz has got with Bpic is another step in the right direction to working together and better representing the communities that we operate in. The main challenges I faced in the earlier days were feeling the need to prove my experience and my knowledge to others, especially when I was leading a project and being the only female in that team. And also becoming a parent to 2 little girls and then being on maternity leave back to back meant that I found it hard to progress and complete my APC because of that time setback. That said, there's lots of lessons that I've learned along the way. It's important to ask questions and keep asking. It's important to seek opportunities and constantly learn, build your knowledge base, and feel confident in the skills and abilities that you have, that you know you have as well. But as you said, Mary, so being in lockdown, it's given me the time to become more actively involved in the D&I work that Gleedz are doing and that I'm passionate about. So the 2 bits of that I'm sort of actively promoting is, one is our female force group, which is well, with social distancing and lockdown rules, it's a way that we can support, inspire and share experiences with female colleagues. And that's been, it's been great. It's been incredibly insightful for people to be able to just interact a bit more in a different way though. And also planning a school outreach program to inspire the next generation, similar to what Rod's done already, you know, and it's proven a success. So something similar, but in regards to schools and promoting the construction industry as an employer, and in particular encouraging more women and Baines students into the industry, whichever role they might want to do. So that was so that's a little brief overview of the few bits of D&I work that Gleedz are doing that I'm quite interested in pursuing and getting further in.
Fantastic, thank you for sharing. And if you can sort of just touch on as well some of the work that you're doing in regards to paying it forward, so working with schools and really informing and educating the next generation. A lot of people don't really understand construction. A lot of people think, you know, it's hard hats and it's, you know, sites, construction sites, whereas we know there's a plethora of jobs that are in the industry. So, you know, what is currently being done by yourself in Gleedz to inform the next generation about what they can do within the industry?
Yeah, so Gleedz have done a lot of stuff already. So we do things like career days, CV writing help, we've gone into schools and done presentations, and then work experience opportunities as well. But the school outreach program we're trying to put together is to formalise that approach and have a more of a consistent message that's going across on a national basis, so to reach out to as many schools as possible. So that's the aim of the programme. So it's just to formalise the approach itself and build on the things that we're already doing. And in particular to reach out to the BAME community. There's a skills gap in the industry, but there's also a diversity gap in the industry. So it's tackling both of those things. And we found that, you know, there's not much point going to the universities and talking about this sort of stuff because they've already decided they're in construction. You know, they've already been persuaded. It's the students at GCSE level and A level that, you know, they're deciding on their career and they're not maybe sure of what the construction industry has to offer. And like you said, you know, what the job opportunities are, and it's so varied in construction. So it's about showcasing all of that and making them aware of, you know, all the different disciplines that you could go into, and then, you know, that gives them something to go home and talk to their mum and dad about and say, you know, so and so came into my school today and we discussed this and I'm so enthusiastic about it and I want to find out more, and getting that support and getting those talks happening with those students, with those parents as well.
Thank you so much. And I love what you touched on in regards to skill. And that's so key because when we look at this industry, a lot of people are very dependent on experience and they're dependent on, you know, the academics, the education. But what they rarely tend to think about are the soft skills that are probably just as important. And Rod touched on it also, just having that resilience and being, you know, a go-getter and leveraging your networks. And I want to go back to you, Joanna, and just talk more about, you know, mentorship. That's something that you're very passionate about. And as a leader, how would you say mentorship is important? And what key things do you impart in your mentees when it comes to skill-based?
So I think for myself, what I've put to other people is what I've learned from my own experience. I'm talking from what I've seen in my career. So I think it's things like navigating the corporate culture. When people say things and you think, I don't know what that means, understanding the differences in cultures that you may face when you are in the professional workplace. And I think that's what I've tried to do in helping people from their getting into uni, whether it's their personal statement or whether it's going on to do a spring internship, summer internship, or applying for a job. It's those sorts of things that I've tried to help people to do, because it's things, if you don't necessarily have people in your family or your professional or personal network, how do you figure out these things apart from getting responses as denied? Unfortunately, you were not successful on this time. And that's the sort of things I like to help people on a personal basis, because I feel that's where my skill set is best offered.
Fantastic, thank you so much. And we are so cut for time in regards to, there's so many questions that we have, but I definitely want to just return back to Nadeem, because a lot of questions have been generated in regards to timescales and reaching out to SMEs. And I know you've mentioned the opportunities that are available, but there is still that feeling of, will the SMEs and the minority businesses be able to gain opportunities? Where do they go to go and search for them? It's usually when you're in conversation with people that are that have accessibility to this information, that you can now know about what to bid for and know about what contracts to go for. Whereas a lot of the time, small businesses miss out on these opportunities. So is there any work being done to approach small businesses directly and minority businesses directly? Is there, what are the timeframes that you're looking to provide these opportunities?
Thank you, Mary. We do a lot of engagement with SMEs across all the sectors that we cover at Baines, the department I'm in, which is the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. I'm the Business and Industry Minister, so I cover pretty much everything from the foundation industries like steel to aero and auto, and of course construction, all the way through to life sciences and the professional and business services sectors. And we do a lot of engagement with SMEs. Specifically for the construction sector, I think the playbook is going to be really important, and that is the timeline is shortly or imminent, which is sort of probably Whitehall jargon for any time before Christmas, but an important piece of work. Very happy for anyone in the sector, if they want to connect with me after this. Very happy to send them that publication when it's published, but also then to make sure that we stay in touch with them as we begin to publish things like the green paper on procurement that I spoke about earlier, or any other opportunities of investment that we're making across government in infrastructure. And so very happy to continue that conversation. I apologize, I was just in the middle of typing, so I was scheduled to end this at 7:45. I didn't want to leave a really fascinating conversation, and thank you, Amy and Joanna and Rod, and of course Nikki for the brilliant contribution, and you, Mary. But I've got another meeting I've got to go to, so
you were practically rounding up the panel for us. I just wanted you to say a few words before you head out. So thank you so much for your keynote and also for your contribution to the panel. And I want to thank all the panelists. We actually do have a second panel. So if you did still have questions, please do fire them at us. And we will be touching on some of these questions when we return. But I will hand over once again to Nikki. And thank you once again, everybody, for joining us for this fantastic panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. It was very enjoyable, some very good insight, and a joy really hearing about people's personal journey. I think, Rod, when you shared there about how you started out, Amy as well, going to an all-girl grammar school. And I detect a slight Brummie accent in how you came across there, Amy. Could I be right in saying that?
Born and bred in Birmingham.
Hey, come on, you Brummies.
I didn't think I had a Birmingham accent though, but
you see, when one specialises in being a Brummie, you can pick it up.
Oh, there you go then.
But no, Joy, thank you all for sharing. And as Mary said, time permitting, we are going to do our utmost to get to those questions. Thank you, so many of you who've put them in. If we don't get to do so, then there is going to be a post-event follow-up. Those questions will be put there, and those people who've put the questions, they will do their utmost. Bpic will do their utmost to make sure they get answered. Before we go to our next guest speaker, and I really appreciate so many of you sticking around on this wonderful acknowledgement of the first year for Bpic and their work on this evening. We will do our best to make sure it goes very smoothly for the rest of it, so that you're not too tied in with the evening and lose out with your dinner. All right, so I'm working on that. But just to make sure I mention those of you who've continued to share comments in the chat room. Thank you to Ina Zilona. Thank you very much. You're saying congratulations and well done to the team. To S. Hazel, unfortunately she had to leave, or he had to leave, but he wanted to acknowledge Bpic for their contribution and what they've been doing over this last year. And that was all of those, and that was on behalf of all of those from the Cultural Fusion Network at Network Rail. AJE said, well done, Bpic, fantastic achievements. And yes, Dr. Nelson, there's lots of you acknowledging what Dr. Nelson said earlier on this evening. You found his speech very inspirational. Mac along, hello Mac. Mac, who's also acknowledging you, saying well done to Bpic, and well done as well to Dr. Nelson for the contribution that he has made. So if you want to, you can still continue to put in your comments. And there was a question there that will be answered for you, Tapua. Tapua Gavaza, hi, how are you? And thank you for your congratulations. He said, is there going to be an online platform for these contacts? I will, I'm sure one of the colleagues here at Bpic will make sure we're aware of that. Again, welcome to all of you watching on live on YouTube. So let's continue with our speeches. This one I'm looking forward to hearing about, because if there's any of you who's involved about our towns and the way that they're built and how they're put, and then there's always conversations, as we know in the news, about where people are going to live and how can they live in you know, in a maisonette through to a 3-bedroom house, or whatever it is, even if it's an office block turned into flats. This person, I think, is quite keen, understanding and knowing on when it comes to that side of the work. I'm really pleased to say that our next speaker is Victoria Hills. She's the chief exec of Royal Town Planning Institute. Oh yes, we have quality people here, quality people. And now Victoria, she joined Rtpi back in 2018, in April 2018, but she has over 20 years experience in planning, transport, organizational leadership and development. She is very passionate about planning great livable places for people and for businesses to cooperate and work alongside each other. She's chaired the Transport Planning Society in her previous role and time. And she's also part of the Rtpi's Transport Planning Network. In 2017, she was appointed as a fellow of the Institute of Civil Engineers. She's into keeping fit and looking after herself. She likes to holiday. Hang on a second, I don't think you can go anywhere at the moment. But she loves to do that, horse riding as well. And she is, a qualified girl guider. I promise that I will do my best. I remember those times as a brownie and a girl guide myself. So please, everyone, give a virtual warm welcome .
Hello, I hope that you can hear me, and I hope that the Zoom holds up okay. Well, thank you so much for having me here. I've got 15 minutes. I'll try and keep it snappy, because I don't want to hold you up from your dinner. But it is a real honour to be here talking to you this evening. Everyone's been saying anniversary. I'm going to go a bit further and say happy birthday. It's your first birthday, Bpic. And I'm afraid I buckled under pressure the Christmas lights are up and the birthday party has started. So I hope you're enjoying the lights. They went up earlier. My kids are absolutely delighted because I said the 1st of December, but no, I've made the exception. And yes, it is a real honour to be here with familiar and new faces. A little bit about me. I am actually unusually a chartered town planner. That is unusual because I'm running the institute for which I joined as a student member over 20 years ago. So it's funny how things work out. But the reason I got into town planning was quite simple, really. I was a geographer at university. Interestingly, I studied in the West Midlands, so I'm not a Brummie, but I did live 3 years in Wolverhampton. So perhaps that makes me part Brummie, and may explain my strange accent. At times it's a bit muddled up, but we'll stick with it. But I looked around me and I drew the conclusion that all the people who were involved in designing and delivering the environment that I was living in, well, the majority of them were not women. And so I wanted to get involved in having something about shaping the environment that I was living in, and perhaps helping to improve it for the future, and looking at it through a slightly different lens than perhaps the people who were engineers, the architects, the construction industry, the surveyors, etc., who at that time in the 90s, it's fair to say, were mostly men. Things are improving, and we'll come back to that. So I often think that planning is the gateway to construction. So it's really helpful, I think, to have conversations beyond your own bubbles or echo chambers. And planners are very good at talking to planners, but I think we need to get better at talking to the other built environment professions. And of course, construction is a huge, huge part of that, because nothing gets built without a planning permission, but of course, nothing gets built without the construction industry to build it. And what a fascinating time to be in the construction industry. A little bit about the planning landscape, if I may. It's been a big year for planning. Let's face it, the pandemic has shone a light on communities, on how people live their lives. We're living our lives in different ways currently, which means we're spending a lot more time in our homes, in our community. And this has got us thinking about these issues in a way that we haven't done before. So the pandemic has been a big driving force to change the conversation on planning and construction. Before that, of course, we had climate change and the need for climate action, which is another big driving force for change and for broadening the conversation. And a common theme that will come through, as it has tonight, will continue to do so. If you want to broaden the conversation, you have to broaden the people having that conversation if you want to drive forward change. And another big reason for planning having a really big year this year is, of course, the government announced on the 6th of August their intention to deliver major planning reform through the form of a white paper, Planning for the Future, the biggest shake-up in planning for 75, 80 odd years. Their words, not mine, but there is big change coming and lots of conversations on planning. In fact, I don't think planning has ever been in the national media as often or as high profile as it has this year. And then you've got, of course, what we've just been hearing from the Minister, the green recovery, massive investment in infrastructure, in housing, in tackling climate action. And all of this comes with it the complete opposite to what we had in the last major global recession, which was austerity. We've pivoted completely to actually build, spend, build our way out, green recovery. And of course, all of this is great news for the broader built environment industry, whether you're in construction, architecture, surveying, planning, or something related to all of these fields. This is a great opportunity because we're all going to have to gear up and scale up. And so in doing so, we need to ensure that that is accessible to everybody and to bring in a broader diversity into all of these professions to really make the most of this opportunity, but also to have a really big part in shaping the future landscape. Now, I didn't start with what the Rtpi does, but I should just introduce is, yes, we are a Royal Institute. We've been around for 107 years. Interestingly, Prince Charles is our royal patron. But we really do three things. We are a learning society, so we do thought leadership, loads of research, we influence the agenda, and on Monday I will be in front of the Select Committee presenting some of our evidence for planning for the future. That's the Communities and Local Government Select Committee, I should say. But we're also a membership body. So I've got nearly 26,000 members in the UK, Ireland and internationally. And we're there for them through their professional journey, whether it's training, whether it's helping them navigate many of the pitfalls that we find through our career, and providing them with great networking events and all the sorts of things that Bpic do. But the third thing is we are also there for education, and that really starts right in the schools all the way throughout. We accredit planning schools and all the rest of it. So we're not just a trade body, we're much more than that. And since I've been doing the job in 2018, for me, it's about collaboration, working with others. And I love the strapline I saw up earlier, the start the evening stronger together. I couldn't agree more. And there's so much more that we can do by working together rather than having the same conversations separately in different siloed organisations. So I think the opportunity for the Royal Town Planning Institute to work with many others, including Bpic, is a really exciting one. So what are we doing about diversity? What does diversity mean for the planning profession, and what does it mean for the Rtpi? Well, we have a similar challenge to many of the built environment professions, as has been alluded to earlier, that we don't actually represent currently as a profession the communities, or we don't look like the communities that we represent. As a professional body, we have about 7% of our members of BAME. Things are moving in the right direction. 11% of students are BAME, but clearly that is not as representative of the communities. And I think the reason it really matters for planning, perhaps in the same way as it does for some elements of construction, is you are actually at the coalface out there with the community. A lot of the time planners are talking with the community, they're meeting with the community, whether they're developers, whether they're residents, and they are sort of a shop window, if you like, for the built environment. So it's really important that the profession represents and looks and feels like the community that it represents. So we've clearly got a lot of work to do there. And coming into the Institute, I could recognise the need for stating a very bold vision, which I've got the board to sign up to. But then coming from where I worked previously, I spent 16 years working for all three mayors of London. I knew that it wasn't just good enough to talk about things, you have to have an action plan. So we launched Change, our action plan, in January this year, and it's focused on some really tangible actions, if you like, for want of a better expression. You know, yes, we've got to have a very clear vision, but it's not just our vision. We've got to get the industry in its broadest sense to buy into that. The professional organisations, the companies and the local authorities, broadly, our membership is half and half private and public sector. So we need to get everybody bought into this. Also, we need to get academia bought into this as well. You know, and it is a sad fact that of all the planning schools we accredit in the UK and Ireland, out of all 33 of them, probably only one of them is headed up by a BAME academic, and that's not really good enough. We need to do something about that. And I could say the same thing about planning consultancies and also about local planning authority chief planning officers. So we need that buy-in with industry to work with us. As a professional body, we cannot do it alone. But we also need to get our own house in order first through our own governance structures, diversifying our own board, our own General Assembly. And I'm delighted to say, for the first time in what will be our 108th year history next year, we will be welcoming in Wei Yang, who is our first ever BME president. And we'll have 3 out of a board of 15 BME on our board of trustees. So we're moving in the right way, but we've got a lot more to do. We must set our standards and review all of our standards to ensure that the barriers which may be hidden are not there, so that we make it accessible for people to get involved in the profession and their institute. And we've heard about education already. It's really, really key. I'll mention in a moment one of the projects we're going to be working on. But also our action plan is looking at leadership, is looking at culture, It's looking at attracting and retaining diverse talent. So what have we done to date? Well, we've done a lot of talking, actually. We're very good at that as planners. We've done a heck of a lot of research, but now it's time to put it into action. Data is going to be a key part of that. We've got some data, but we haven't got enough. And I love what Amos was saying earlier about the data, the work that they're doing, because it's very relevant for one of the projects that we're going to work on. And I'll mention that in a moment. But first, about what we've done. Well, we've launched our action plan. We've got some data together. But very importantly, we're also, we've just appointed our first ever EDI manager, whose job it is to work with myself and the board and the entire profession to help us navigate what we need to do, what data we need, and where we need to go next. So we are at the start of our journey. It's a very important one, but an exciting time for us all as a profession. We're also doing things real time. So, you know, we're delighted to work with a number of networks, including Baines Planners Network, Baines Property Network, but also Bpic and others to really just work out how can we help, how can we work together. And I think there'll be opportunities over the course of the next year. But rather excitingly, last week or the week before, we announced our partnership with Public Practice, who are mainly London South East based at the moment, but they have had a phenomenal impact of being able to attract a diverse cohort in for the last few years into the built environment sector. So we want to work with them to support how we can work together to ensure we retain that great talent. And then last but not least, last year we launched our apprenticeship, Chartered Town Planner Apprenticeship. And it's a new thing, using the apprenticeship levy, bringing people into the profession who perhaps may not have been able to get to university in the first place. Currently, in the first year, we attracted 10% non-white members, non-white apprentices, but there's so much more we can do on that. And it's about going to the right places so that people can find out about these opportunities. And that really leads me on to the last bit of my talk, if you like, which is the what next, and getting on with some really practical projects and going to the right places and actually new places. So we have a phenomenal ambassadors outreach program. We've done it for years. The problem with it, if I was going to be critical, is it's usually relying on our volunteers going to speak to largely the places they know, the schools they went to. And that's great at inspiring that cohort in. But what we want to do is to have a bit more of a systematic map about, well, where are the high growth areas? Where are the big infrastructure projects coming? Where are the big housing numbers coming? Where are the underrepresented groups in the planning profession? And we want to map that so that we can actually identify going into different schools, perhaps we haven't been in before, to introduce this fabulous career called town planning. And no doubt we can learn from each other in how you're doing it in the Black Professionals in Construction Network. And that's really why I'm coming to share all of this, because I think there's lots that we can learn together rather than reinvent the wheel. So we're going to call that project Explore. And, you know, I guess it's a bit tongue in cheek, but it's town planners going out and exploring the areas that they're not necessarily talking in, that we know there must be passionate young individuals there who would love to be working on climate action, working on improving air quality, working on housing, finding solutions for delivering culture, delivering great spaces, green places in their environment, but they just don't know about this career yet. I didn't know about the career, by the way, until I was a geography graduate, because, you know, we just need to up our game on that. So we're going to do that. We're also going to review our education routes in and identify if there are any barriers in there, and calling that project Education for Everyone. So we have a standard route in. Could we do it a different way so that we remove some of the barriers? And the last project I mentioned, I'm going to mention, is about, it's actually Explorer. I got the names muddled up, so it's been a very long day today. Balance is going into the schools, and that stands for Build a Legacy and Community Experience, I think it is. Sorry, it's been a very long day today, but that's about going into the right places and attracting talent in. Explore, sorry, is a work experience program. We don't have one currently as an institute for anybody, but it strikes me it would be a really good idea if we're going to launch work experience to do so with underrepresented groups in the profession. So drawing it all together, because I can see Nikki popping up, which means I must be out of time. 47 seconds over, Nikki. I'm timing it. I'm a planner, you see. We're very organised. But basically, I think there is such opportunity here. This year has brought so many things to the fore in so many ways. Cross-industry collaboration. Let's work together if we're going to go out and try and tell the great story of construction and surveying and planning and architecture. Perhaps we could go out and do it together. So thank you so much for being generous with the time. I think we'll finish on #Stronger But I've really enjoyed the opportunity here, and I'm definitely going to stick around to listen to everything else. Thank you very much, Nikki.
Oh, bless you. Thank you very much, Victoria. Definite girl guiding in there with you, my love. I like to see all of that still coming to the forefront. And I think it was really interesting what you were saying, and I'm sure for all of us who are listening, that is possibly going to be really key going forward. If anything in this year that has struck me, I'm a former senior teacher and manager within pupil referral units. So for most of my 25 years of teaching, worked a lot with young people who were permanently excluded from mainstream school. So already they would not have access to possibly the career workshops and the mentors that could come in. And so I would really encourage Bpic and others, when you're looking at, go to the pupil referral units, go to alternative education providers, because they are the ones that have some wonderful young people who just don't know where to put that excess energy. And it can either make them extremely extrovert and therefore they act out their emotions in terms of anger, or they become a recluse, an introvert, and they don't want to leave. And yet they are extremely gifted in putting things back together again, even if they look as though we are told so many times in our society that they're destroying things more than building, but they are actually there wanting to build. So I'm really pleased to hear you say, Victoria, that from a town planning standpoint, and as many of you have said, our other speakers, that you want to get into those areas that you normally wouldn't speak to. Which leads me then nicely to you, Louise, to our next guest speaker, Louise Ellis. Louise is the Global Chief People Officer at Gleedz, the organisation that Amy also works for. And as well as loving yoga and as well as making sure she keeps herself mentally and physically fit, she is really keen to make sure that her teams are sourcing, recruiting, training, and engaging great talent that they come across not only for their company here in the UK, but their global locations. So she's really keen to continue the focus and cultivate that focus of working environment for the company, for Gleedz, but also that it really is inclusive and delivers exactly what her colleagues, the other employees in the company and across the global locations really need and want. So again, thank you everybody for your patience with us. Let's now though hear from Louise. Welcome, Louise.
Nikki, thank you very, very much indeed. I'm Louise Ellis. I'm the Chief People Officer at Gleedz, and Gleedz is a global property and construction consultancy. We operate around the world. We help businesses and investors achieve value from, achieve value from their assets by providing advice to help clients bring their projects to life on budget, on time, and to an exceptional quality. And as a community focused business, we've been around for over 135 years now. We've got a great background, a great pedigree of offering advice to our clients around the world. But one of two key factors that our business is founded on, it's local on the ground knowledge, and it's the unique people who work for us. We have a whole host of employees, about 880 in the UK, who deliver schemes, and they know their local market and communities intimately. And there's a definite fundamental link to understanding the needs of local communities and providing a truly representative and supportive built environment. As a sector, we know that we've got an awful lot of work to do to not only better represent the communities that we operate in, but also provide new routes for a diverse range of individuals to have the opportunity to learn about and enter our fascinating industry. We know that the ONS in 2018 identified that BAME construction workers in the UK made up just 5.4% of the workforce. So the question is, how can we better represent the communities that we serve, open up the industry to a greater pool of talent? And we really hope that our relationship with Bpic will help us to do this. One of the cities that we operate in is Birmingham, and you can see here on the slide, we have our teams involved with major projects supporting the development of the city's infrastructure, from national rail links to complex hospital builds. You can see in the photographs here that we've been involved in the Biorma Tower in Digbeth, 3 Snow Hill offices, in the Martineau Galleries, which is a new neighbourhood, Centenary Square, and the Midland Metropolitan University Hospital in Smethwick. And we've learned through the life cycle of all of our projects that identifying and developing local talent is absolutely paramount, not only to better advise clients through detailed market knowledge and greater connection with the communities, but also to the regional economy by providing training opportunities and crucial employment. We know that BAME communities make up 42% of Birmingham's population. So to support the growth of communities in and around Birmingham, it's important that the construction industry does all that it can to present ourselves to the next generation in the surrounding areas as they make fundamental career choices and offer a range of opportunities into the industry. Our teams in our offices, as Amy mentioned earlier, we've linked with schools and colleges to introduce construction to the next generation. Independently, we've done this independently, as well as with organisations like Transformation Trust and Class of Your Own. And our employees, as Amy said, we love reaching out to those environments to help with CV writing, help with mock interviews, running workshops, and really helping give a good flavour of what it's like to work in our industry. We know that making links with local universities is important as well to profile the opportunity to work in construction. And in the UK, we've got 33 employees who are on our degree apprentice scheme, 2 of which actually are working within our Birmingham team alongside their studies at University of Wolverhampton. We have some radical change to drive within this industry to open up more doors to the next generation, to better represent local communities and offer equal opportunities across the UK. And we know that our industry lags behind in driving radical change to attract and retain diverse talent. We know that improved EDI drives a sense of belonging. And this is something Joanna referenced earlier, that the more an employee feels they belong to an organisation, the more they can be themselves. And then the happier that an employee is at work, the more engaged they are. And then the more engaged they are, the more productive they become. And each person's uniqueness is what makes every employee an asset. So as long as people feel comfortable to bring their own self to work, we know that we're working within a diverse environment, and that's what's important for us. By working together to change the conversation in construction, we'll help our industry make progress towards an environment that's equal for all. It's a diverse and celebrated and inclusive environment. We know with Brexit looming, the ongoing skills shortage that we've got, the impact of the unprecedented pandemic that we're in, there's never been a more important time for collaboration and innovation in our industry. And greater diversity reflects society that we live in and encourages increased creativity, challenging the ways that we do things, bringing new solutions to clients and higher performing teams and increased productivity. So our journey at Gleedz, it's been an interesting one. I've been with Gleedz for nearly 3 years. I don't think diversity really was on the agenda when I joined, but we've done a huge amount of work over the last 3 years to try and make Gleedz a truly inclusive business. We know that change comes from within. It has to come from the heart of a business. And we've done many things within our action plan to drive a better balance of ethnicity, gender, etc. within Gleedz. We've done this, one way that we've done this is through our Gleedz Academy, which is our internal training and development resource. We've provided education programs on things like unconscious bias and how to tackle it, better understanding diversity, how to lead a diverse workforce. All of these things are offered to all of our employees. And then our challenge within the people department and the people function is to make sure that that learning is then translated into the working environment and our line managers actually live and breathe what they've learned. We know as well that by increasing lines of communication across the business at all levels, we know that that helps employees feel that they're able to speak openly, and that's another element that we're working hard on to make happen at Gleedz. We want to help better reflect the communities that we operate in, and we've identified some specific actions that we take as a company. One of those is that we've now introduced a diversity and inclusion steering group. We've got 14 individuals at a range of all levels across Gleedz that represent every geographical location or region within the UK. And we've also got our Allies for Inclusion network. We've got 53 people that belong to that. Amy is one of our key players in that forum. And we are starting to introduce this as a conversation within Gleedz across every level and in every part of our company. We know that to make positive steps, we need to understand where we're coming from. And in order to do that and to help us change our approach, we have introduced or are introducing a much more thorough way of collecting data. So we're introducing a new recruitment platform to help us understand the markets and the environments that we're recruiting from, what we are doing to enhance that recruitment in certain parts of the country to help us represent our communities, but also to then be able to analyse our current workforce and our potential workforce better. We know by doing that, we're going to get to be able to make more informed decisions and evaluate our progress to build a diverse workforce at Gleedz. The collection of this crucial data will then help us take action to improve what we do and how we engage with our employees in the future. It will help inform change as well in how and where we recruit from, allowing us to better support the local communities that we serve through targeted and relevant recruitment campaigns, making opportunities at Gleedz more visible to a much more diverse audience. So from seemingly small but impactful changes, such as operating 100% blind CVs through our recruitment process, going to be introducing that by the start of 2021, to eliminating potentially biased language in our job adverts and our job descriptions. We know that getting our recruitment journey right is fundamental to providing opportunities in construction to a diverse workforce. So we're looking forward to working closely with Bpic to widen the appeal of the industry to all the communities around the UK and to develop greater inclusivity in our working environment. Every business within the construction industry, as we've heard tonight, should and needs to take responsibility to improve their processes and policies. So all of the behind the scenes ways of working, the culture, the leadership, to ensure that we're working in an inclusive environment. And I look forward to seeing the construction industry come together to build change now. And we hope that through partnership with Bpic, we're going to be able to help our industry attract and retain a greater pool of talent, better represent the communities that we operate in, and offer a greater chance of employment to a more diverse workforce. Thank you.
There I am. Thank you very much. Oh, bless you, Louise. Thank you very much for that. It's always great to see my home city represented so nice. Yeah. Oh, I was born in Smethwick. That's the hospital. So from that standpoint, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for that. And I know we're going to have the question and answer panel after we have our next two speakers. And that will give, again, another opportunity for some of you putting your questions together. I just seen one in there that talks of, you know, enough talk, where's the action and the accountability? And I think what we're finding tonight through this anniversary celebration, birthday celebration, we are at least now hearing that there is a genuine shift in people's thinking and that action is taking place. You just heard there from Louise about the fact that I'm just so blessed to hear somebody say they actually are going to do blind CVs, that they are going to look at the language that they use. And all of us, black and brown and white, have to make sure that we all look at how we speak about each other in our everyday speech, as well as even what we're like within the workplace or prospective job opportunities that are going to come. And that's what we need to be working on, especially if it's going to impact our young people. So great to hear that there are movements. So Jackie, your question there of enough talk, where's the action and accountability? I'm hoping that you're at least inspired and comforted that companies are actually looking at that. Now, before we have our guest speaker of Carmen Morris, we're going to hear now from Hope. Hope Virgo is a mental health campaigner. You can see her lovely picture there on the screen. She's author of the book Stand Tall Little Girls, and she was the WATC Top 100 Rising Star of last year, ambassador and multi-award winning mental health campaigner. So let's hear from Hope.
Cool, fab, thanks so much. I hope you guys can hear me okay. I always get a bit nervous about technology and whatnot. But yeah, thanks so much for having me to speak this evening. I will try and keep to kind of the 15 minutes. Yeah, just because I'm conscious of your time and things like that. But yeah, my name is Hope Virgo and I am a mental health campaigner. So I work all over the world, doing a lot of work with schools and corporates and hospitals, and then also do a lot of work with the government in the UK. So looking at things around eating disorders and diagnosis, but also looking a little bit more broadly on that whole spectrum of mental health and trying to get people to talk much more openly, but also trying to give people the skills to really deal with what is going on when life happens and when difficulties happen. So this evening, I'm going to share a little bit of my thinking around mental health within construction. I'm also going to share a little bit of my personal experience just to kind of like set the scene for you guys so you have a little bit more of an understanding of where I'm coming from with this. And then I'm going to end with just a couple of things that I think you guys can all do to really, really help kind of move on this conversation. So first things first, just looking at the stats. And I'm not going to go through these stats in immense detail because I know that you've probably all seen them before. But we know that at the moment there are 1 in 4 people who have a diagnosable mental health issue. The fact is every single one of us has mental health. Like we all have physical health, we all have mental health. And throughout life, we will work our way up and down that spectrum. And it is so, so important that as individuals, as organizations, as communities, we are working out how best to support not only ourselves, but actually those people around us as well. We also do know that in COVID, we have seen a huge increase in the number of people currently struggling with their mental health. Again, I'm sure you will have seen that kind of plastered all over the news, left, right, and centre. But it's the fact of the matter that people are struggling right now. And I think also there'll be a lot of people who are struggling, maybe with various bits of trauma, things that have happened over the last year, but are functioning at such a high level that they haven't yet kind of embraced the fact that maybe they are slightly struggling. One of the reasons for that potentially could be because, yes, mental health is still very difficult to talk about, but also there is a huge amount of noise out there at the moment, different people sharing their emotions, their feelings, and it can feel quite an intimidating place at times. And then again, just looking within the construction industry, and I'm not going to kind of go again into detail with all of these stats and slides, but you will be able to see from every single one of these stats, and this is just like the tipping of the iceberg, there is so much deeper research that shows the impact that mental health is currently having on people in construction. There is still even more stigma when it comes to the construction industry. People are still really, really struggling to speak up. I do a huge amount of work with Kier Construction, and actually every time I run sessions with them and kind of spend time individually with people that are working for them, every single time I'm seeing more and more people come forward, more and more people sharing what is going on, how they're feeling on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of them have been hiding that for so long. So all of those unhealthy behaviors that they've learned to deal with their mental health is just kind of so ingrained and so embedded. And this is why, for me, it's so important that actually we're starting to have more of these conversations around mental health. We're not just looking at mental health as being something that affects females or kind of teenage girls or teenage boys potentially, but it can literally affect every single person. No one is immune from getting affected by mental health. So like I said, I'm going to now share just a little snapshot of my experience, just so you have a little bit of an understanding of where I'm coming from. So I developed anorexia when I was about 12, 13 years old. One of the reasons that I developed the anorexia is I came from quite a dysfunctional family. I was the middle child, so constantly trying to fix every situation, fix everyone's issues in my family. My older brother would often run away from home a fair amount, end up in A&E after fighting with my dad, and I'd be that person that would go and find him, go and try and calm him down, kind of try and make him feel a little bit more level. Around that time as well, when I was about 12, 13 years old, I was also sexually abused for around 8-9 months. And again, throughout that whole period of time, I didn't talk to anyone about it. I felt really guilty and really embarrassed about it. When it finished, the man went off, got married, and I just thought because he'd moved on with his life, that I had to find a way to move on with my life. I had to find a way to deal with all of those emotions. And that was when I started to hear this voice in my head. And that voice was the anorexia. And it was like having this best friend with me the entire time. It gave me this real value and sense of purpose every single day, controlling me from the moment I got up in the morning to the moment I went to bed, telling me what I should eat, what I should drink, and how much exercise I should do. This coping mechanism kept me going for the next couple of years. It numbed emotions, it controlled me, it gave me that sense of control, and it just made everything feel so much easier to deal with. When I was 16, eventually my school got in touch with my mum. I ended up going to my doctor, and I was finally referred to the Children's Adolescent Mental Health Services. And it was at this point that I had a bit of a crossover with my illness. The anorexia for so long had made me feel absolutely amazing when I did what it told me to do. But at this point, it wasn't making me feel good anymore. But instead, every time that I had anything to eat or drink or wasn't exercising enough, it would make me feel so awful. It would leave me with these intense feelings of guilt and failure and disgust at myself. And I didn't know how to cope with it, what to do with it, or how to even really talk about it. And even when I was in the Children Adolescent Mental Health Services as an outpatient, I still wasn't yet able to accept that I had anything the matter with me. I still wasn't able to understand why I was going for weekly appointments, week in, week out, every single week being encouraged to talk about things, when actually for me, I didn't want to talk. I just wanted to keep pretending that life was fine, everything was fine. And then 6 months after I started at CAMS as an outpatient, I hit what was my rock bottom, and I ended up being admitted to a mental health hospital, where I then spent the next year of my life trying to recover. So learning about food, learning about exercise, and learning to just talk about how I felt. The thing with eating disorders and with a lot of mental health issues, which I know a lot of you will already be aware of, is they are so secretive. You hide all of your behaviors. You feel so much shame around those coping mechanisms. I don't know what your coping mechanisms are or how you're feeling this evening, but I know for some of you, you might have found other ways to deal with those emotions. You might be, I don't know, a workaholic. You might exercise a lot. You might drink a lot. You might control what you're eating as well. But actually for me, I had to start to really accept that something wasn't quite right. And the only way that I was able to do that was when I was in hospital. So after my first 3 days in hospital, I was just completely fed up. I didn't think I needed to be there. I hated everyone else that I was there with. And I was just so argumentative with everyone that tried to talk to me. But on the Friday night, one of the nurses came in to see me, and she brought with her these massive pieces of paper. She marked on where my head was and where my feet were. And she asked me to draw how I imagined myself. So I traced around the outside of me, kind of knelt down on the floor, the kind of thing you do when you're a child. Once I'd done that, she asked me to lie down on that exact same piece of paper, and she traced around the outside of me. She then got me to stand up and look back down at those papers. And the images were just so different. I thought at first she'd lied to me, that she'd somehow tricked me. But I had this realization then that actually there was something seriously wrong with the way that I viewed myself, and that maybe there was something the matter with me. So on that Friday night, I told myself I was just going to start eating, and then at least I could kind of get back out of hospital and go and do exactly what I wanted to do. But over the next year, I really began to work hard at my recovery. I talked so much more in my therapy sessions. I had some kind of structure in my day with food and exercise, which really helped. And I was able to just start sharing and opening up a bit more. The thing with eating disorders, though, that makes it slightly more challenging than potentially other mental health issues is there is a physical aspect to it as well, which means that when you're in recovery from an eating disorder, your weight seems to change, and mentally it takes so much longer for things to catch up. It meant that whilst my weight was going up and I was eating again, actually I was still really struggling in places. So again, having to start to voice what was going on. The other thing that I really had to start to work through was actually the wider impact on my family. So quite often when you have someone in your family who's struggling with their mental health, the spotlight kind of goes on that person, which is totally understandable. But actually for my brothers and sisters, for my dad, for my mum, it was really challenging at times. And actually for them, not having that support in place meant that they had to, again, kind of come together and talk about it so much more. But like I said, I spent that year in hospital in recovery, again, trying to understand about the food aspect. Eventually was discharged and pretty much have been in an ongoing state of recovery since then. I always say now that I manage my recovery. I know what I need to do to stay well. I know what my triggers are. I know what my coping mechanisms are. I know that I tend to be having very good days, but I do still have the odd bad day, days when things do feel slightly challenging. But the thing is just because we might have bad days, just because we might have those days when we really struggle with our mental health, it doesn't make us weak. It's just part of where things are at. And for me, it's about actually identifying those days and realizing there is so much other stuff that I can do on those days to help me feel better. From finding people to talk to, from setting myself small goals to achieve that day, and from realizing that actually quite often my brain will distort how I'm feeling and what I look like and what I'm feeling with food. But I think the hardest thing out of all of this is creating those spaces where people can talk about things, where people feel like they can bring their entire self into their families, into their working environments. And like I said, I don't know what you guys are all going through this evening, whether you're feeling great, whether you've been struggling for a couple of days, whether you've been struggling for the whole of lockdown. I don't know. But actually what I do know is that if we find people around us to talk to, it really helps. And yes, that's challenging and difficult, but like I said, it's creating those spaces where people feel safe to do that. And I do really believe that actually in a working environment, in communities, in families, we all have a role to play in this. We know that suicide rates are at an all-time high right now. We know that mental health is kind of soaring, and particularly in construction, we've seen this massive influx and increase in people struggling. Because of this, we need to start taking a bit more responsibility over it. And I've just put up on the board kind of a couple of things that are really, really important. So the first thing is actually just normalizing conversation around mental health. We need to create those safe spaces. We need to create spaces where people can come into work and say, I'm feeling really rubbish today. No one needs to fix me. No one needs to like talk to me about it, but I just feel rubbish, like we would if we had a bad headache one day or an upset stomach, whatever it might be. We need to put those things on an even playing field. Ways to do that is to look at actually what internal comms you're sending out. Are you bringing mental health into those internal comms? Are you normalizing that conversation through that avenue, whether that's through podcasts you've got, or your intranet, or newsletters, or communication generally that you send out? It's also about identifying those awareness days. I know that for some people, and I know definitely for me, I feel like sometimes we put too much emphasis on awareness days. But if you're starting out having this conversation, it's about finding these times of the year to kind of loop mental health into, to again, start that conversation, and then using that as a springboard to then take that even further. It's about getting people internally talking about things. Run sessions where people can increase their own understanding of mental health, of eating disorders, of body image, of depression, suicide, whatever it might be. And actually have these sessions where people can come and learn and understand. If you think that people won't come to those sessions because they're afraid of the stigma, try and look at how you're kind of, I guess, naming them. What are you calling them? Are they wellbeing sessions? Are they mental health sessions? Have you got senior leadership team present there to try and encourage other people to come? Or can you frame it in such a way that these sessions are for parents and carers, or people who are supporting their loved ones, so that individuals maybe don't feel like the ownership is completely on themselves? And the final thing within that whole kind of normalizing the conversation is actually looking at your wider networks. You will have huge wide networks, families, friends, others who will support the work that you are doing. And it's again about bringing them into that conversation. And then just before I finish, just really, really quickly, I just wanted to flag a piece of work that I am doing at the moment. So I launched a campaign called Dump the Scales about 1.5 years ago. The reason I launched the campaign was because people with eating disorders find it very, very difficult to get support unless they're really, really underweight. Eating disorders aren't something that just affect white teenage girls, but they affect people of all different backgrounds. They affect people of all different genders. In fact, 25% of cases are male. And we know that actually only a really, really small minority of people who have got a diagnosis of an eating disorder are actually anorexic. So only that 8% will fit into that kind of category where they can access that support. My campaign is working to change this through education, through equipping communities, empowering the NHS, empowering GPs, and making sure that families have that space to really talk about things. So it would be amazing if you could have a look at the campaign, sign the petition, share it. And if you are particularly interested in that whole conversation around eating disorders and mental health and actually getting people to talk about things, do feel free to get in touch as well. But thanks everyone for listening, and thanks so much for having me on this evening to share just a little bit about the kind of stuff that I'm doing. And like I said, like there will be probably stuff that's resonated with a couple of you this evening. And if there is, I would encourage you to kind of reach out and find someone to talk to. Or if you do have any questions for me, do feel free to kind of just drop me an email, and I will also get back to you in that sense as well. But thank you so much.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much, Hope. Very was thought-provoking conversation to be had for many of us at this time. And I think it's very timely to have had that break and a reminder for the industry and for all of us actually about why we need to look out for each other differently to probably what we've done pre-COVID. If anything, again, out of this year, if this is a wonderful reminder of how we need to really communicate and tap into the relationships that we have and look out for people's well-being, especially when it comes to their emotional and physical well-being as well. So many thanks to you, Hope. Appreciate you being with us this evening. Well, we are coming down nicely, as they say, and we are going to have one more speaker before we finish with our question and answer panel discussion. So we really appreciate those of you watching on YouTube, as well as being with us here in the actual forum of being on Zoom. So I'd like us to hear then for our final key speaker, you could say, for this evening, from Carmen Morris. Now, Carmen is the founder and managing director of Kenroy Consultancy. She's very much looking at equality, diversity and inclusion. She's a consultant with over 25 years experience in this world and in this field of diversity, significant experience, cross-section of areas of work when it comes to training and development, strategic management, and her speciality is race and race equality. So it's really good to have Carmen. Thank you as well, Carmen, for your patience. She's probably not enjoying being out in the garden so much now that the weather's changed, but she loves dancing like me. So although we won't have that from her this evening, we are going to hear from Carmen. So welcome, Carmen Morris.
Hello there, good evening. It's a pleasure to be at the 1 year anniversary of BPIC this evening. I'd like to thank Amos for inviting me. I put together a short presentation looking at the construction industry and some of the issues that the industry itself might think about taking on board as they go through their journey to become more inclusive. Much of my presentation is focused around race and the race equality agenda. So here we go. So industry-focused consulting. It's very important that the industry has consultancy that is focused around its industry and its particular set of circumstances. The construction industry has much to do to develop an inclusive environment. It may be visibly inclusive in some parts, but what about the other parts where we know that it is not so visibly inclusive? Leadership, recruitment, retention, these are all issues that the industry must undertake more analysis and put more action around to ensure that it becomes more inclusive. So what we do and why it matters. Kenroy Consulting is a bespoke diversity and inclusion consultancy. We're a team of highly experienced consultants, and we support our clients across industries to think bigger and to do better. So next slide, please. Okay, so why does that matter? Creating an inclusive business. In order to create an inclusive business, we have to start right at the center. So the center of the industry. There are a lot of historical reasons why the construction industry is not inclusive, but they need to think about developing businesses for the future. We're all aware of the instances of race and racism that have taken place this year, the global protests, the death of George Floyd. It's incumbent that the industry seeks to create robust EDI strategies and implement plans that are going to make the industry inclusive. These cannot be piecemeal activities. They have to be robust strategies. They have to include EDI training plans that seek to address the specific issues within the industry. We know that there is a lack of Black and minority ethnic individuals within leadership levels. We know that there are microaggressions. For those of you who are interested in microaggressions, I posted a Forbes article today on microaggressions and the impact that microaggressions have had on Black staff within workplaces. It's okay to fix processes and implement policies that are inclusive, but what about the people that have suffered from racial trauma within the workplace because of racism? A lot of industries now are putting together programs and projects to try and address this. But what about the people who have suffered career-wise or throughout their careers? I note that Hope, my colleague who spoke earlier, spoke very much about support systems and wellness programs for people who are suffering mental health issues within the workplace. The same should be done for people who have had a history of microaggression and perhaps a career that has been unfulfilled due to the fact of their race and barriers that have been put in their place. So I think that's something that needs to be taken on board as well, much in the same way that mental health is. So there's a lot of responsibility ahead. We need to look at the supplier and supply chain diversity within the industry. We know very well that when it comes to supply chains within the industry, the chain is very much white and the usual suspects get the contracts. What are we going to do about supplier diversity? That is something that is crucial. Procurement processes within the industry also need to be looked at so that we can develop diversity and inclusion within the industry, not just at the surface level. We need to look at inclusive recruitment and compliance with anti-slavery legislation. So there's a lot of responsibility ahead for people working within the industry in leadership positions to make sure that we are once and for all taking diversity and inclusion seriously. Part of this is going to be around planning a holistic approach to inclusion. And why does that matter? If we simply look at recruitment or we look at training, then we're missing out 95% of what we need to be doing. Step one means that we have to evaluate our organization, our industry, look at what we have and seek a pathway to where we need to be, which is something that the Dean spoke about earlier. We need to activate a plan, a robust plan that involves or includes everything that we need it to include. And this cannot be just a broad-based overall diversity and inclusion agenda, because as we all know, diversity is multifaceted. Race has been left off the agenda for many, many years across industries, not only within the construction and engineering industry, but across industries. The third step would be to monitor and review. And this whole process of step one, step two, and step three, as you see on the screen now, is a rinse and repeat. It's not finished. We put things in place, we monitor, review, we start again until we get it right. Next slide, please. So it's about developing an agenda that is authentic around diversity and inclusion. Increasing equality and inclusion by design. Now, what I mean by that is getting to the crux of the issues, looking at leadership. Why is leadership so white? Why is it that organizations have Black and Asian minority ethnic individuals, employees, only go to a certain level. Why is the glass ceiling in place? And what do we need to do to change this? So we need to develop the agenda that is inclusive by design. We need to look at the structural barriers that impact the progress of Black and Asian people within the industry. So part of this would be strategic inclusion planning. We offer executive diversity coaching, race and equality across the board in terms of training, mentoring programs, and programs to develop inclusive leadership. One of the things that we do steer away, I think I've heard it once or twice this evening as well, is unconscious bias. Unconscious bias training has been around for a long time. There are many reports out now, including one by the Equality and Human Rights Commission, that suggests that it doesn't work and it actually can do more harm than good. So unconscious bias training was once a very trendy thing, but I do not believe that it is part of an agenda as we have today, where we're looking to make real significant change around the diversity and inclusion, and particularly race equality agenda. Next slide, please. Around inclusive leadership, we're looking to build from the top down, which means we look at board members, we look at board membership, decision-making, corporate social responsibility, and how race, the relationship with race at that level. Making a difference between corporate social responsibility is very, very important. It's about looking at communities, work that can be done in communities, work to promote the industry, to marginalize people within communities under an inclusive agenda. And it's about creating opportunities for people who are not well represented within the industry. It's not just about having an event once a year, once or twice a year, or giving some money to an underrepresented community. It's about actively trying to involve those communities within the industry and making sure that the processes are there so that they are welcomed, they have equality of opportunity, and they are able to progress within the industry. Next slide, please. So there are some pop-ups on this screen for supporting the building of an inclusive strategy. At Kenroy Consulting, we look at long-term strategy around EDI agendas. We support organizations to communicate EDI effectively, and that's very important. If you're not communicating the agenda, it will lose traction, and there is a way to communicate. One type of communication may work within one community, it may not work for all. And as we all know, much communication is done in a Western style, probably developed by someone who is white and sits on a homogeneous board. It's about realizing opportunities and evidencing diversity and inclusion, not saying that we have recruited X amount of Black people this year or this month or over the past 2 years. It's about evidencing the value that whatever processes you design, evidencing the value that that has within the organization and for communities. And it's about generally developing best practice. So how we help? We look at strategy, support, action, and review at Kenroy Consulting. So we support organizations with strategic support for inclusion, training, mentoring, and coaching, developing policy and procedure, which is robust and actually delivers results rather than ticks a few boxes, and developing a continual approach with inclusive actions. So if you want to learn more about that, you can contact us at info@kenroi.com, that's KENROI.com, or visit the website. As I mentioned earlier, I'm also an expert contributor around race and leadership on Forbes.com, and you can follow me on my LinkedIn page. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Carmen, much appreciated. And you're very succinct there in your information. And you're right, there's a lot of questions that I'm hoping that you would have heard Carmen raise there in the presentation that we need to really think about when we're really saying, do we understand what it means to have race equality? So very pleased to have that conversation being continued with you and your work there, Carmen Morris. Well, we come then to our penultimate event as such, or part of the evening, following our panel, just saying their goodbyes and possibly may answer one question or so. We will be hearing again from Amos to do the closing address and finish the evening off for us. So let me turn over to you, Mary. All being well, you'll be there. And
yes, I am here.
Okay, there you go.
Well done, everyone, for tarrying. We have had a fun-packed evening today. It's been amazing. I've learned so much and I've been so inspired. There's been such diverse content that's been shared today, and it's truly invaluable to all of our journeys, I believe. And we're just going to do a quick fire round. And I'm going to be joined by some of the panelists that were on the first panel. So Rod is joining us again, Amy, as well as oh yes, it was just Rod and Amy. Joanna and Nadeem had to leave us, but Joanna actually did leave a really good message in the chat, and I just want to read it very briefly and very quickly. And those are her final words, saying, be authentically you, be bold enough to seek help where you need it, and don't forget to support others, as Dr. Nelson said. Pass on the baton, use your professional and personal network to navigate corporate cultural barriers that you may see or perceive, understand how to challenge professionally, have a standard of quality, and again, be authentically you. So those are her final words, and I really do hope that you take those on board. We also have joining with us on the panel, Amos, Louise and Victoria. And I will start off with you, Louise. Thank you so much for your great presentation on what Gleedz is currently doing. I wanted you to just quickly touch on, very, very briefly touch on how people can actually take advantage of some of the opportunities that you say Gleedz are currently trying to implement with their diversity and inclusion. So there are people on the call today that are currently unemployed, that are looking for employment, that are very skilled, but obviously during the circumstances have not been able to, get work or obtain employment. How can they take advantage of the opportunities that you're providing at Gleedz, as well as students? How can they take advantage of the internships?
Sure. We make a point of advertising every role that we have available in Gleedz, and it's on our careers website. So if you type into Google Gleedz careers, we've got 15 roles, for example, available at the moment for applications from external candidates. We've got a range of, we obviously got a range of roles from apprentices all the way up to senior directors. And my advice would be to constantly look at the vacancies that are listed. Contact me via LinkedIn, absolutely fine for that to happen. And we're taking real action within our recruitment process to make sure that we've trained our line managers, to make sure that they're not asking the wrong questions, they're not making assumptions as a candidate is in an interview dependent upon their name or their background. And we've seen some great successes actually of where we've increased our BAME mix in teams, and we know that we've got more work to do, particularly around better reflecting our communities that we operate in Gleedz. It's tough times at the moment. We know that for all businesses, and we're constantly looking at how we structure our business. So I'd say that there are always opportunities, people with the right skills, with the right knowledge, regardless of background. We would be delighted to receive applications.
Fantastic, thank you so much. And I do ask all the panelists and keynote speakers, please do leave your LinkedIn details and emails in the chat. I'm sure the attendees would love to have that information and can continue the conversation if you are okay with that. So thank you once again. And I will move on to Victoria very quickly. Thank you so much for shedding light on the planning world and giving us more insights into what you're doing. And the fact that you've gone ahead and broken so many glass ceilings, it's really, really encouraging and motivating to see. One of the questions that came through actually was, were there any plans for Rtpi to provide financial investment in a bid to improve BAME professional uptake? So if you could answer that very briefly, and any final words that you have, Victoria, that will be awesome.
Yes, the short version is yes, there is. I talked about action, and we have an action plan, but we have bids going to our board in December to unlock funding so that we can actually deliver some of those projects that I talked about, to actually make them happen. So we're in a fortunate position as a professional body where we do have a position of resilience where we can invest in things that are worth investing in. So I'm taking that to the board in December with a strong recommendation that we do think about very practical actions, going out into the right schools, working out where we need to go, running work experience, looking at how we do education, bringing in experts to help us do that, mentoring also. So we will be investing in all of that, subject to board approval for that. I think the business case is strong. So you wanted me to be brief. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And Carmen, although we've just heard from you, I really did want you to just share maybe a few words in regards to summing up how we continue this conversation. We've started in regards to some of the topics that have been raised today, but how do we follow on from some of these discussions that are taking place today? How can the network really take advantage of all the knowledge that has been shared?
I think that it's been an excellent evening, and a wide variety of information and thoughts and ideas have been put across. I think it's about the industry working together. I can't remember, I made a note. Someone had said, we need to, Victoria Hills, let's get out and do it together. That was you. Yes, we need to do it together. For organizations to sit down and operate in silos is not the way to go, because what we're actually looking to achieve is a holistic, industry-wide change. And we all know about the issues that the industry has, being very male-led, not as many women, the industry isn't seen as attractive to women, where are Black people within the industry, etc., etc. So we know what the issues are. We know the issues around procurement, and that large organizations just use large organizations that have been around for as long as they have. But in terms of your supply chain, what are you doing? You know, these are issues that need to be looked at as well. So what we do at Kenroy Consulting is we look at things holistically, not the usual, let's have some training on unconscious bias. Oh, let's do some inclusive recruitment. Oh, we're good because we've got some Black people where we didn't have them before. We've got some Asians where we didn't have them before. We need to look at structural change across the industry. And that is where we need to be in terms of working together across the industry going out and doing it together, working in partnership with each other, as well as working in partnership with the community. And that is the way that the industry will change.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll briefly cut you off there, but thank you in regards to your contribution of teamwork. I think that's a theme there in what you're saying. It's going to take more than one person and one organization. It's all of us working together. That's so key.
Industry-wide focus.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. And to touch on the supply chain aspect of things, Bpic is actually doing a supply chain event in 2021. So please do keep your eyes peeled for more information regarding that event. So I will pass on to Amy very briefly. Just some final words and thoughts shared on today, and also how people can stay in contact with you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's been a great evening. Lots that we've learned, lots of experiences and ideas that we've shared. So that's been great. Personally, I feel like, you know, the fact that these discussions are happening shows that there's a positive shift already. You know, we're talking about it because we want to address the problem. So, you know, the identifying it and ways to improve it, that's where we need to go, and that's where we need to strive, and every business needs to strive in the same way. And I do feel that, you know, having a diverse group of people in your organisation, which, you know, have come from different life experiences, different work experiences, that's what's going to create positive challenge, positive innovation, creativity, and a better collaboration in delivering successful projects in the construction industry. So it's not the start, we're in the change, and we just got to keep progressing.
Yeah. Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. And I want to just pass on to Rod very quickly. You've shared so much value in regards to your story and what you've spoken about today. Any final words that you want to share with the attendees, especially just imparting some wisdom in regards to starting a business and breaking through in industry?
I think Rod actually left us to go to another meeting.
Oh, right, okay, no problem.
Rod actually left us to go to another meeting.
Okay. Okay, so then last but not least, then Amos, I'd love to pass on to you. And it would be great if you can say some words in regards to how people can take advantage of the network. There were a few questions around how can I really connect with the people that are part of this network, as well as the leaders that have tuned in today. How can they be challenged to be more active in their organizations and businesses? So if you can just say a few final words before you give your vote of thanks, that would be awesome.
Thanks a lot, Mary. I think today's event has been fantastic, well hosted by you and by Nikki, and thanks to all the panelists. It's really, really amazing. And for us, we're looking to continue the work onto 2021 and all the work that everybody's doing to increase inclusion. The fact of the matter is we're just getting started. That's what it is. As much as we seem to have done good work, this is our first year and there's a lot more to come. We do believe in ourselves a lot and in our team. So we thank everybody for their support, for what they've done in supporting us and in supporting our organization. So Carmen, thank you so much. Louise Ellis, Amy Baines from Gleedz, thank you so much for your involvement and agreeing to be involved in this event. You've done so much fantastic work. And I got a thank from Gleedz Gareth as well. And Carol, I speak to so many people. I spoke to Sarah, like within Gleedz, and it's such I feel like I'm part of Gleedz now. And Victoria Hill, you've been so fantastic. In the short time we've known each other, I feel like the connection has been great. And the work you guys are doing at Rtpi, it's been so amazing. And for whatever reason, my parents live in Brentford, and I feel like I've got a connection with you, so which is good. Nikki, thanks a lot for getting involved. Same as Gift, and from us, and from the minister, and from Dr. Nelson. So everybody that's been involved in this event it's been fantastic. And that's all I can say. I can't really say much more than that. From what I've seen so far, it's been amazing. And Nikki's put his camera on, which means it's time for me to go.
I like that. I must do that more often. In all honesty, Amos, well done to you. Well done to the team, to everyone who's been involved. You have done so well, everyone, both on YouTube and being here with us on Zoom to stay to this hour of the day after, for some of you, a long day at work, and possibly all as well being in front of the screen. Bpic Network, Stronger Together, celebrating its first year anniversary or birthday celebration. Of course, again, if you just unsure, because you can't be, because you've been here, but if you know of others who would like to know what Bpic's about, what they're up to, if you know of other companies, whether they be small or large, who could come alongside Bpic and to ensure that agenda of making sure that it's a diverse workplace when it comes to construction and engineering, and that the work that the companies that we've heard here on the show, as well as those at governmental level, will also make sure they're doing their part, then please spread the word about Bpic Network. Next year, they'll be having the awards. Next year, they'll be celebrating being, into 2021. And so from that standpoint, there's going to be great work that's going to be done. So with that, many thanks to Mary, you for hosting the panel and the discussion there, to all the speakers that we've had, to those behind the scenes, Gift, Rtpi, all the team members. Really do appreciate your time, as it's come to nearly 25 past, well, not nearly 9:30. Really do appreciate it that you've been with us for this evening. Have yourself a great evening. I've been Nikki Tapper. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Whoa. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Great, nice. Good job, Amos.
Yeah, thanks a lot, coming.
All right.
Bye,
Bye,
Amos.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Great, man.
Bye,
Looking good.
I'm partly staying on just because you may want a quick debrief or whatever, talking to Gift as well if she wants to come back in.
I'll send a separate Zoom invite just because this is currently live on YouTube.
That's fine. It is. Hello, bye-bye. Thank you for being with us. I forgot they were there. Okay, then. Thank you ever so much, and we'll talk later.
Speak soon.
Bless you. Bless you, Amos. Thanks again.
Thanks a lot, Nikki. So is Gift gonna send an invite?
Yes, I'm sending one right now. Give me 2 minutes.
All right.